really identifying the strategy from Rival, which was the Bakasura jungle, right? You have to be close to the Zeus, and as a result, he was just free to do so much damage every time Rival tries to aggress. So I think the main focus is that Astral needs to shut down Crimson.
Well, let's see if they're going to be doing that in the picks and bans phase right now, everyone. We are ready for game number 1, Flashpoint versus Astral Authority for the world champions of the console wars.
Excited to see what direction both of these teams are going to go. I think there's going to be a couple of contested picks here inbound. You were talking behind closed doors how Geb, between these two, specifically Matt Koiz and Chapo, transitioning to the support role, not really known for support. He was mostly a jungler, different style, I would say.
Yeah, I don't really know Chapo's entire God Pool. I didn't play when he played. So I don't know entirely what he's going to play, but I do know Koiz likes that Geb, and he did first pick it yesterday, and then they banned it against Rival yesterday, so maybe there's a high contestant on Geb today.
Well, standard ban so far, no surprises just yet, but with the first phase of picks coming online, maybe we're going to see something interesting here.
Pele's open.
Erlang's open also.
And I think that the choice has definitely got to be the Erlang Shen. He has more early game pressure. I think the Mercury is good for global pressure, being able to make that counter rotation happen. But we saw what Deathwalker was able to do on the PC side, and since then, I think a lot of teams have nightmares.
Well, you guys were right about the Geb before, but not the Erlang Shin. So does that mean that Flashpoint is preferring Erlang over Geb? What does Geb offer?
Geb is just going to be a comfort pick for Matt Koiz primarily, and also it's going to be allowing Crimson some safety, right? Trying to make sure that he's not going to get dove, making sure that Astral is going to be less aggressive.
Yeah, and Crim, on whatever he plays, he's going to dash in. He's an aggressive player, and having that 700 Geb shield in the late game to peel him out is going to be really nice for him.
Now the Jingwei pick here, that's surprising?
A little bit, considering how early in the draft it is. It's a very safe pick, so there's nothing wrong with it at the end of the day, but what's more surprising is the Sun Wukong.
And I do know Jingwei is Griff's probably top pick right now. He does love it. It provides a lot of safety, and I'm pretty sure they just want to lock it down. But I am confused as why no Erlang was picked. Lairs did prioritize it a lot during the entire fall split and then during the LAN too.
I think the main reason is because Erlang and Pele is open, and considering that Astral is not expecting Flashpoint to get both of those picks, and then it'll go back to Astral to get one or the other.
Well, why wouldn't they pick both of them? Couldn't you place
You
one
could
in the
do
jungle
both.
and one in the solo?
I don't know if Delny plays Erlang, but he does play Pele, so there's an opportunity to put Pele in solo and pick the Erlang for jungle.
I mean, we definitely saw what Deathwalker could do with
Yes.
an Erlang jungle, so it's definitely up for grabs here, but a little bit of a pause before going into the second pick for Flashpoint Wolves.
Plenty of time right now, 70 seconds remain, so going into the think tank now is not a bad idea. You got to make sure you solidify these next two picks. Pele was available. The Polynesian jungler has a lot of mobility to make some plays in any side lane.
I do like that pick for Frank also because it allows him to play very aggressive, and there's the Zeus to pair with the Geb that Crim and whatever the sport's name is.
Matt Koiz, yeah, Matt Koiz. Yeah, he loves the Geb, and this makes sense because when you're playing a Zeus, you're very mobile, you have no gap closing abilities, you have no movement speed, your only self-peel is the damage that you're bringing, so a Geb shield goes a long way.
All right, and the Naja rounding it out for Astral in this first phase of picks here. So it's going to be Sun Wukong solo in the Naja in the jungle.
Unless it's Naja support, the same way we saw Trix Tank bring it out in the very first game of the first day. Had a lot of success there, but seeing how it's actually, yeah, I could see it being Naja support. Chapo has been known to play a lot of assassins in the jungle role, both console, both PC, so this wouldn't surprise me.
Alposh, Kuzumbo, Terra, and one last god going to be banned out on the side of Flashpoint Wolves. Who do you want to see this last ban go to? Maybe another mid laner?
I want to see Janus banned. Veronica's really comfortable on the Janus, and it provides a lot of safety for the rest of the team.
And now Kwang.
This makes sense, you know, trying to limit what Layers is capable of doing. He did run it yesterday, but that was against the Khepri, like you mentioned.
Maybe they're going to be regretting not listening to you inbound and not banning out that Giannis because Astral is picking him right now. And with the Ao Kwang ban, I guess they do think that Naja's going in the support role?
Yes, absolutely. There's no reason to ban out Kwang if you don't think Naja is going to be in the jungle.
And I know Lairs has a really high priority. He likes picking AK into the Zeus because he can just get in and then get out before even taking any damage from the Zeus. Because I know he used to like that in Scrim, so I think he still likes it here.
Last two picks for Flashpoint Wolves going in the way of Cupid. Yes! Oh, this is my favorite ADC. I'm so excited to see him. I mean, this Cupid on top of the Zeus with the Geb ult on top of that, that's a wombo combo.
It's a lot of AoE damage from Flashpoint, but I think it's just going to be a hard counter matchup against the Jing Wei. You're trying to get the Persistent Gust and Agility Dash combination, but the Cripple Minefield prevents that from happening. So Griffin is definitely going to have to start using that airstrike defensively just to get away.
Solo Sobek. That's what we're going to be seeing?
Yes.
We actually haven't seen him at all during the PC games.
It's because there's just more aggressive picks or very passive picks. Sobek's got a little bit of a nerf on the tail whip going from 10 seconds to 12, but that's not enough of a nerf to justify not picking the Sobek. It's such a safe pick. You can never go wrong. And when you're initiating to help your Zeus and Cupid pop off, Sobek and Sylvanas for the pulls goes the way.
Ooh, Cabrakan as well.
That's another pick that Lairs loves to run. He loves running this Cabrakan jungle, and he'll just run at the enemy team the entire time. This Zeus is going to have a hard time if he falls behind against Lairs' Cabrakan.
So these are very unique comps from what we've seen typically in the last few days here. What do they provide for these teams?
Astral's going to be very aggressive. It screams aggression here. Cabrakan, Naja with a Giannis portal. There's going to be a lot of okey-doke surprise plays I'm expecting on the Zeus.
And what about Flashpoint Wolves? What do you think they're going to be going for inbound?
I think they're just going to kind of play for the late game again. They're like peel late, they're damage late, they're team fighting, everything late game is just what they're waiting for. The Pele is just probably to get them through the early game and then just harass a little bit late game.
So then, Anatoly, what does Astral then have to do to not let them get to that late game?
I think Naja support is the way to go because trying to invade the purple buffs, invade the red buffs on top, if you can remove some of those red buffs from the Zeus, then I think that Baronic will have a slight advantage over Crimson in the clear department, then it can look for some plays around the Gold Fury, but Cupid Sobek is not an easy lane to go against. They're also going to have a lot of kill potential.
You think it's Sobek that's going to be support, not Geb?
Well, you never know, honestly.
That's true.
You never really know. A lot of teams have been swapping it out with the Geb, but I think Cupid Sobek is more aggressive and there's just more kill potential.
All right, real quick, who's got this?
Based off of comps, I like FP's a little bit more. It's a lot less execution compared to Astral's.
I got Astral.
All right, let's head on over to the casters for game number 1.
It's time to go right into Astral up against Flashpoint. Game 1 of your Smite console finals here at DreamHack Atlanta. And how could you ask for a better match? Both these two North American teams, big-time rivals between these squads. It feels almost like a run back of last year.
It basically is a run back of last year. A couple of modifications on both sides, but either way, Flashpoint is all too familiar with this setting exactly.
Well, some action right out the gate. Matt Coy's got to be careful as now the sprint comes out. He's been slowed as well. Now he's stuck inside the Tremors. And first blood for Baronic. Astral Authority strike first.
Talking about coming right out the door, swinging Finch. These teams are not holding back in the slightest. Astral Authority bringing out the first blood can be a pretty big mental blow.
And I'm surprised by this, Taco. The pacing through the semifinals was much slower than this. It took a little while in the rival Flashpoint set. They kind of ramped up and the pace started to increase. But this is nothing like what we've seen so far. These are aggressive picks. You heard them talking about it on the desk, and they played aggressive from minute 1. The sprint to lock down that first blood kill was critical to put Koi's behind.
Inbound kept mentioning that execution being critical for Astral Authority's composition to really work out. And if we're ever going to see this take off, those kind of first blood movements are the exact type of plays that Astral have to keep looking to repeat.
And Bobby was right again. Lairs is the one that picked up this Cabrakan, so he'll be able to continue to play aggressively out the entirety of the game. But I want to go back and take a look at that respawn first blood once we get done with this purple buff. Get a good chance to see exactly how they were able to lock him down. Sperano got that last hit, though, that was critical to find the damage.
This just felt like background information and Astral Authority having done their homework, because all of Flashpoint were looking to group up and go for that. But hold that thought, because Chapo could be in a little bit of trouble here, already trying to challenge onto the red buff with this Naja. Great ring bounce, going to get a ton of damage on the Kingsmate and Koi's, but now the Heart Bomb is just too off the mark.
That was perfect from Chapo, because that potentially could have been some trouble for them. They did indeed go for that purple buff invade from on the side of Astral to try and see if they could set the dual lane of Flashpoint a little bit further behind, but then they ended up taking quite a bit of poke. Just barely able to make it out. There is some sustain there for the Naja, so Chapo should be okay.
Jumpa stuck inside those Tremors for a moment. Nice little portal there for Layers to get into the mid lane a bit faster. So Baronic and Layers going to be able to challenge the left mid Harpies. Crimson sitting at level 3 though, not willing to back down.
And they will indeed have to fall back behind those mid Harpies. But I love this Kabrakan pick. I mean, Taco, who's getting out of this tectonic shift? As it looks like there's some trouble here in the dual lane. Keegsmate's already very low and had to use the beads, and there's nothing more there for Champo to follow up. But who on the side of Flashpoint is going to be able to get out of these walls?
The walls are the problem here, and that's exactly what Astral Authority were looking for. They wanted to be able to lock down Crimson especially, and Keegsmate as well. It's never a bad idea to keep the Hunter out of the engagement, whether you're utilizing those tectonic shifts in order to cut off an escape route or even to just keep them all corralled into the same territory. You have to appreciate the follow-up that Astral Authority have been looking for every single time. And Keegsmate in this duel lane, he's still at level 1.
He's had a really tough time trying to find the farm. Remember, the purple buff invades have been relentless. They've kept them pushed up at this tower line. Astral not wanting to allow Keegs and Matt Coys any room to breathe. And now finally level 2 for this Cupid, but it is going to be slow going. And this is a god that very much likes to get items online, Taco, to really start hitting hard. It hurts when you're pushed behind.
But that's the thing, it already feels a little bit like this Cupid is falling short of the mark of what Flashpoint were intending it. Cupid is meant to be a little bit of a lane bully in this matchup against Griffin, but because of Chapo on the Najah, the ring toss has just caused a little bit too much poke damage from a distance that Koi's has been forced more often than not to stand directly next to Keegsmate in order to try and block any follow-up sashes so that Chapo can't harass Keegs any further.
And I gotta think the problem is that in an ideal situation when you're playing the Cupid, you want to be able to get those minions to group up, right? So that Heart Bomb can hit everyone. You can kind of see just now that there are some that can still be outside that radius. So because they have the Geb and he has so little pressure, they can't afford to push up. And that's how Astral end up with another successful red buff invade.
And that's all they're looking for every single time. Hit them where it hurts. And if they keep getting that red buff, Crimson is only going to fall further and further behind. Sash won't connect, a little bit too far to the right. But for now, Crimson still not looking to take any chances. He's been playing off this tower line pretty heavily.
Definitely scary, though, for Crimson. He's got to watch out. That's the threat that Chapo is going to be posing on this Najah the entirety of the game, is that at any point, Crimson could get locked down and be in danger of falling. He'll need to be either very quick or very wise on the use of those purification beads if he wants to make sure he doesn't get punished by this Najah and by Layers once he starts looking for aggression.
Jumpa as well on this Pele. We haven't really had too much of a time to address this, but Pele in general has not been a very prevalent pick so far for the console side of things, and I think that Jumpa has a fairly aggressive playstyle, but at times he can get a little bit carried away.
He absolutely can. I think he's very hot or cold, it can feel like at times, right, for Jumpa, where he's either winning you the game like 10-0 and 10, or it's the other way around, 10 and 0 sometimes. So it depends on what kind of Jumpa that you get. And on a god like Pele, he's certainly in a position where he can absolutely just run the game if he's able to get out of control. But that's why I love these tectonic shifts. Even if it's not meant to be offensive on the side of Astral, it could dissect the fight, and now you can't dash to try and get in on the ultimate for Jumpa. I really do love this Kabrakan pick.
Or even if Jumpa decides to all-in commit onto one of the carries, if Layers is able to separate Flashpoint from their jungler, chances are Jumpa's going to end up dead in the middle of everybody from Astral Authority. Nice purple buff invade coming through one more time from Astral. They are continuing to heckle this jungle for Flashpoint, and Chapo not going to be able to get the sash onto the Gem. Koi's having already hit the crowd control immunity portion of that rollout. Safe and sound.
But as they did on purple, they will try to do on red. Jumpa really the only one nearby, and Chapo's right there to try and stop him. In fact, Jumpa gonna look for the knockups, try and find an escape route, but he ends up getting stunned. Follow-up damage to the tectonic shift. The lightning storm is there, and everyone's trapped in the bad weather. Crimson finds one, and Griffin finds another as Jumpa goes down 1-for-1 jungle for jungle.
Something out of nothing, though. At least Flashpoint were able to make somewhat of a return there, because for a moment, it looked like Jumpa was just toast from the get-go. The fact that Layers ends up dying in the process is actually a little bit favorable for Jumpa in that situation, because the red wasn't successfully invaded by Astral Authority. Flashpoint now have regained control of part of their jungle, at least from this duo side.
It definitely is helpful for them to slow down this aggression, but that started because they weren't able to cleanly lock down Jumpa the way they wanted. The tectonic shift might have been a little bit late on that one, and even if they do get a good one, almost every time Crimson's gonna follow up that exact way, dropping down the ultimate right on top of it, and then Astral are kind of stuck having committed in, and they take too much damage.
I like this though from Chapo. He's allowing Griffin to get a little bit of solo farm here. Good heart bomb though from Keegs, because Griffin was about to try and play a little bit aggressive up on him in that dual lane.
Dash.
but nothing to follow it up with. Chapo not wanting to commit the Windfire Wheels just yet onto the Geb, knowing a little bit better here, because if there's one guy that can actually survive an Ninja ultimate, it is almost certainly going to be a Geb.
That's right, and Matt Coy is being very calm in that situation, had the Geb shield there available, and Flashpoint were able to make it out, but so far it's felt like the pace of this game has been almost entirely dictated by Astral. It's been Flashpoint who have been responsive on these purple and red buff invades. We haven't gotten to see much of our solo laners yet. They don't really need to be involved, but this is a good sign if you're a Flashpoint fan. Now they're able to grab their purple without any kind of contest.
In a way, though, this is almost favorable for Flashpoint because there has been a little bit of a lull in the action. Astral Authority, for as relentless as they were in their aggressiveness early game, jump up, trying to get frisky with Veronic, but Giannis is Giannis. He'll be able to portal away, no problem.
It's pretty good being able to walk through walls, as it turns out, but there might be more trouble. Layers wants to find Jumpa. That's enough to force out the ultimate. That's pretty big from Layers to get that win. They have a small window now, about a minute or so, where they can try and lock down this Pele.
And I don't even fault Jumpa for trying to commit the ultimate to get away.
I think he had to, yeah.
I think there's just no other option there. Otherwise, you get trapped behind the wall, and who knows if Crimson's going to be able to try and back you up there.
That's such a good point. The wall has to be preemptive, or the dash rather, or else it'll be useless. But this is a lockdown now in favor of Astral. It's Chapo has to ult defensively now to get away from the Lightning Storm, and Jumpa wants to chase him down. Fields of Love there as well, but the sprint too good. In fact, the turnaround comes through, as now it's Griffin who finds one more kill. You can see Chapo popping off at third space in time, sets up the double kill for Griffin, and all of a sudden Astral Authority come roaring back.
Everything that could have possibly gone wrong for Flashpoint Authority right there just did. Astral ran right at them. Chapo, the ring toss off of the red buff was so smart. That was the movement speed he needed to get away from the situation, to get out of the Fields of Love, and that's the problem with Cupid. For as many times as that Fields of Love can cripple a god, movement always gets you out of there.
That's right, sprint feels like at times just a hard counter to that Fields of Love, because you can essentially walk out of it and it feels like the Fields of Love does nothing. Chapo surviving there was so instrumental for the rest of Astral. A great shot from Veronic. He makes the Giannis look so strong with that through space and time.
He just built up the setup, and it wasn't even intentional, I don't believe. He was just trying to get out. That was Flashpoint looking for the collapse, and Astral Authority just being able to arrive at the right place at the right time because of how much time Chapo made Flashpoint waste chasing him around the map.
And you can expect a lot more of those out of Veronic. He went with that Spear of Desolation in that second item slot, so he's got some pen online, but also some cooldown to go along with the cooldown boots. He should be fighting often, but Jumpa trying to go aggressive against the level 10. Griffin slays. They've got the Heart Bomb. That should be enough. Somehow Griffin just barely lives, but Volcanic Lightning is enough. Jumpa finds the kill.
Without the airstrike, Griffin is just a sitting duck. Chapo and Veronic now looking to see if they can make a counter initiation. Sash is good. Wind and Fire Wheels is even better, but there is a Heart Bomb on Chapo right now. Jumpa gonna come back down, but the Unstable Vortex is off the mark.
And then the Geb Shield coming through from Matt Coys as well, but Veronic comes through the wall with the Unstable Vortex. Jumpa will certainly go down, and now it's up to Chapo to find a way to escape back out the portal. It's good, and the Heart Bomb off the mark. That's all it takes for Astral to make it back out.
That is just well-executed practice right there. Veronic putting the placement of the portal alongside of the wall. Chapo knowing to hug those walls, expecting his mid laner to bail him out of trouble. That is what you want to see from this team, and the synergy is obviously there.
No, I would love to be able to listen into these comms right now, because Chapo's got to be calling for that portal. Veronic letting him know it's on the way. He gets back through and is able to weave to avoid the Heart Bomb on the way out. That one looked like a bit of a nightmare when Matt Coy showed up and had the Geb Shield, but it still wasn't enough. Astral finding ways to claw their way back through these engagements.
And I will say, it worked out in that particular play, but as this game continues to develop, Veronic's got to make sure that he's being as consistent as ever with these unstables, because the follow-up is really not that reliable typically for a Giannis Najah combination. I think that's why Astral preferred to have the Najah in the support role to begin with, and are trusting Layers to be a little bit more of that hybrid follow-up cleanup crew just in case. But you can't ever count yourself as a guaranteed kill just because the Najah is able to take somebody up into the air. There still has to be damage waiting for them at the bottom.
And that's part of what's been so impressive by this, is that we've seen Veronic do things for the team beyond just the damage, even though it's certainly been there. These portals have been excellent for allowing the team to weave in and out of the fights, and I think that's really what separates a Giannis who's fine from a Giannis who's great, which is kind of what we're seeing right now from Veronic, who's 3-0-2. When you're able to help your team maneuver around, that's when you're getting the most out of this pick.
Right now, the Flashpoint just looking to try and make any sort of recovery. Unstable Vortex will clip jump on the backside. Matt Koiz could get caught out, completely cut off from the rest of his team. There is no backup this time. Flashpoint with yet another casualty point.
And it might not have looked like it, but I promised he tried to shield himself. It just wasn't enough to save him. And now Gold Fury on the mark. Beads forced out from Jumpa early on thanks to the Windfire wheels, but he wants to turn around on a Chapo. Through space and time, doesn't hit, but it does force him back. The Gold Fury's been leashed for now, but Delny is here in the fray, and he takes a ton of poke.
Delany doesn't even look like a tank right now. Everybody from Astral Authority just looking to collapse in. Layers with the cutoff. Delany's looking to go down. Baronic gonna be the one to do it. Griffin also joining the rest of his team because Crimson's falling out next.
And a double kill now for Baronic as Jump Up falls as well. Flashpoint buckling under the pressure from Astral Authority. And you absolutely know they're not done. Now to join the fray as Wolves want a piece of the action too. Gold Fury falling in the background, and Astral have sent Flashpoint running.
Wolves just got to sit there and look pretty. That's all he's here to do. He's just reminding Matt Koiz and Keegsmate, you shall not pass. And sure enough, Astral Authority going to bring down the Gold Fury just like the other 3 members from Flashpoint.
A very strong fight from Astral Authority yet again. And I think you made a very good point in that fight. I don't know if it's just that Delny was too far forward, but he looked like tissue paper in front of those damage dealers from Astral Authority.
It's not even that he's building incorrectly by any means either. It's just that this Sobek, despite being level 12, just does not have the tanky capabilities because of how far ahead that duo and mid side of the map has been controlled by Astral Authority.
Exactly.
So many red and purple buffs have gone in Astral's favor. Griffin's got a 2-level lead over Keegsmate. Chapo has a 4-level lead over Matt Koiz. And I know that it's a support role, but a Nijab that's able to snowball at this point is just a little bit too much to handle because that's exactly what Astral were looking for to begin with.
No, you're right. It's huge that he's able to be 0-10 at this point. Chapo's impact can't be overstated. But look at the level relationship between Wolves and then Crimson and Keegsmate to get an idea of what we mean. That's what helps these solo laners so much when they rotate over is, yes, the itemization, but also that experience difference from their dedicated farm. Delny does not have that same advantage. He's essentially at the same mark as Baronic and Griffin.
Credit where it's due as well to Baronic. 9 kill participation out of 10. I mean, what more could you ask for out of your mid laner? But I think he's about to add in just a little bit more here.
Yeah.
Matt Koiz forced into the Cataclysm, but that's not going to get him out of danger anytime soon here. Portal straight into the through space and time.
We've also got the man fight over in duo lane, and I think Keegs is realizing he doesn't want any more of this. Heart bombs are good, but they're not enough. Griffin slays. I don't know if you want to use the Aegis there, my man, but definitely still gets the kill. Windfire wheels, takes one more up into the air and brings him right back down into Baronic and Layers, who are waiting. 3 across the map for Astral.
Every part of the map that could be falling apart
Make it
right now
5.
just is triple kill for Baronic as he brings down Delany and Crimson at the exact same time. One unstable vortex to do it.
That's the deicide for Astral, and the map is theirs. They want the tier 2 tower, and it's essentially just a Matt Koiz to try and play defense. Meanwhile, Griffin Slays has the tier 1 tower in the dual lane as well, and there's nothing that a lone Geb, especially at level 8, can try and do to defend. The map now broken wide open, and tremendous gold lead pouring in.
You have to remember, this is only 14.5 minutes into the game,
It
and
is very
Astral
early.
Authority have already established the pure dominance that they were looking for with this composition to begin with. I think it's only a matter of time before we start to see the first Fire Giant attempt.
And our desk absolutely nailed it on this one, man. This is the early aggression that Astral Authority were looking for. It's such a nightmare when the Naja is able to snowball like this in the support role. Level 13, I mean, that's higher than Jumpa. That's higher than the Pele on the other side. It's higher than Crimson. You can't fight into an extra free assassin on the other side who's also building tanky. He's got plenty of base damage to back him up. It's way too strong.
And you can't get it twisted. Flashpoint are certainly a team that could have definitely pulled off the mid to late game team fighting if they were able to get there. The point is, Astral Authority have full-on prevented Flashpoint from even thinking about the late game right now. They're just looking for survival through the early phases.
And an 11,000 gold lead would be pretty devastating at 30 minutes, but we're half that. We're at 15 and a half minutes right now. That's such a big lead to steer back up at 15,000 experience as well. Taco Flashpoint reeling very early on. They've got to start trying to find a way to slow things down, to fall back and play defensive.
But that's the point where Astral Authority have to continue bringing the heat. The fact that they have been up in Flashpoint's face since the very start of this match is the sole reason why this comp has worked out so well to begin with. And right now, Delany could find himself in a pretty fickle spot because Chapo's already looking for the sash. No Windfire and Wheels commit just yet. but they have to be aware that Delaney's the only member from Flashpoint that's able to show face right now, and Pyromancer is going to go just as uncontested as everything else has looked so far in this game.
Should be fairly free there for Astral Authority, and Delaney at this point has no real way to walk in. Slow going with this Pyromancer. Now that Griffin has shown up, it should certainly speed things along. And again, it's still only Delaney that's nearby, and Wolves is doing more than zoning. Wolves has locked him down. No dash now available for the Croc. He has to lurk inside the waters, but Sprint and the lockdown with the walls are just too strong. A killing spree for Griffin slays. The Croc has to take a nap, and Astral heading right back to the FG.
Astral knew what they were doing when they were giving Griffin that dual lane lead, man. There's a reason they like to play from the left side of the map whenever Griffin is on it. It's because they want this Jingwei to get as far ahead as possible. He has soloed Keegsmade in this game. He has shut down this dual lane single-handedly, and now he's bringing home the Fire Giant Astral Authority, and Astral, I'm sure they're looking ready to keep knocking on the base of Flashpoint.
I don't have a watch, Taco, so I could be wrong on this, but that was a 16.5-minute Fire Giant there for Astral. I just want to make sure that that's what we're all looking at. I mean, that's tremendous, the lead they've been able to build up this quickly in the match, and there's still a little bit more gold to be grabbed, about 3,000 from those Tier 2 towers to push that out even further.
The worst part about it all for Flashpoint as well is that if Astral Authority are successful in bringing down one of these Phoenixes or even multiple Phoenixes, the Fire Waves are going to be dealing significant amounts of damage to the carries from Flashpoint that I'm not even sure they're going to be able to fully clear the pressure from Astral Authority as well as Fire Minions at the same exact time.
That's a good point. They're not really in the best position for that as a squad. One good news, though, is that if everyone is going to be grouping up around the Phoenixes, that is potentially the case for Crimson to look his best if he can find an essentially perfect Lightning Storm. But he's level 14. He only has 3 items. Divine Ruin and Soul Gem, as strong as they are, don't give him a ton of power right away. I mean, Veronic with that Spear of Desolation, that's a 100 power bank item that he got in this first slot. It's just going to be tough for Crimson at level 14 to try and keep up with what's being output by Astral.
Look, there are only 2 deaths right now on Astral Authority. Okay, one for Layers and one for Griffin, and a couple of moments of over-aggression, but that was at the very start of the match. The fact that Flashpoint have not been able to even remotely threaten any of these carries from Astral Authority ever since the first 4 minutes, I'm not really certain that that's going to bode super well for the team's mental aspects in game 1.
It's definitely not a good sign if you're a Flashpoint fan. One thing that you can look at is that this game plan was rather clear from Astral, right? They had so much pressure in duo lane right from minute 1, so you can at least try and make that adjustment in game 2, but it's going to be very, very difficult without a mistake from Astral for them to try and slow them down here in game number 1, but the left side Phoenix push is the call. They've got Wolves in the middle lane to keep the minions pushed up there as well, as already they go in. It's actually the blink in from Delaney, but again, being chewed through quickly by Griffin's damage, and he has to fall back.
Matt Koiz isn't even level 12 yet. He hasn't even had a chance to get his second relic.
That's
I'm
so
not even
true.
sure that a 4-man Cataclysm is going to do much of anything against this Astral Authority squad because of how far ahead they are. Layer's actually going to get sent into the base via a portal from Veronic, and he's still looking for his moment to strike.
And Astral have done a good job whittling down this left side Phoenix without even really there being much of a fight so far. This just goes to show that Flashpoint can't even afford to step forward. And look at this, Astral should be able to walk in and just take the left side Phoenix. It's already down 19 minutes, 20 seconds into the game, and Astral can start swinging back to the mid.
Flashpoint are just scared to fight,
No
and
pluck.
I don't blame them. Layers, though, has been isolated for a couple of moments here, but with the pluck being off the mark, it seems like Layers is going to be safe and sound for now. Minions are pushing in. Wolves going to help try and get a little bit of poke going. Nice detonate, though, from Crimson. I mean, that was the most damage that we've seen on any members from Astral in quite some time.
It is some good damage that will be coming out from Crimson. That is the one good sign for Flashpoint, but look where Layers is lurking, and certainly Flashpoint knows, but it could set up a good position for him as already Wolves has pushed into the back line, and he wants Crimson, the one we said had the damage. Horrific Emblem comes out to force the beads and the Geb Shield, but mid-Phoenix is already down. Griffin freely firing on the Mad Koiz. That forces him back to base, and a big fight from Astral. They've gotten 2 Phoenixes, and they still have time. They want to come over to the right.
But this is the player discipline from Astral Authority. They know that they could very well chase into the fountain from Flashpoint and maybe find a pick or two, but instead, they're choosing to focus onto the main objectives, the Phoenixes. They've already brought down 2, only 1 left standing on the right-hand side, but I'm not sure it's going to be standing for much longer here, Finch.
He finds Crimson immediately on the backside, and then the follow-up comes through from Layers as well. Right side Phoenix already down. Lightning Storm does do good damage, but all 3 Phoenixes have already been taken. This is a nightmare scenario for Flashpoint as Astral now walk away giggling as they've gotten everything they wanted.
Every
they're baiting.
single Phoenix is down. They could bait this right around the corner. Flashpoint
they
might start
are.
feeling comfortable. They're starting to push out. They've already been able to isolate Jumpa, and he's on the run now.
Forced out the beats very early on to Chapo there with the sash. The knockup is good through space and time, means that now Baronic is here to join the fray as well. Unstable Vortex lands, and Volcanic Lightning has to be used offensively in order for Jumpa to get out. Astral doing a great job sticking around and forcing out abilities.
But that's all that Chapo wanted. He just kept threatening Jumpa with the idea that he was about to ultimate any given second, to the point where Jumpa used the Purification Beats, used the Pele ultimate to get away and create as much distance as possible. This has just been so commanding of a lead from Astral Authority the entire time.
And they actually could capitalize on it because they stuck around a little bit after the Fire Giant buff fell off. It's going to be back up in about 15 seconds, or a little bit less, 10 seconds. It'll be back up. If they're there right for the spawn, they might be able to push in while Jumpa's still vulnerable from having to give up the beads and the ultimate. Remember, his second relic is Blink. It's not like he has Nagus or anything to help him out.
There's no chances of survival, I think, if Jumpa shows himself a little bit too closely to the rest of Astral Authority. They know without those beads, he is more than a target. He's definitely got the bullseye right on his back, and might as well paint it on his forehead too. But Astral looking for this next Fire Giant, second one of the game, by the way. And not only that, even with the second Fire Giant, it's still not going to be that boosted FG steroid.
That's right, we're not beyond that 25-minute mark yet, but it is going to be the second FG for Astral. No time wasted, and they're spreading the map. They've got Baronic, who can rejoin the fray at any time with through space and time, pushing on the left-hand side, and two members pushing down mid, and they'll trust Griffin Slays to keep minions pushed up and right. Right now, Flashpoint have to feel all this pressure. How do they find a way to respond when Astral are spreading the map so well?
Well, that's the problem, is that they've got to look at three different directions right now, because Astral Authority made the right call. They pushed up every single one of these fireways as far as possible. Only the right-hand side has been moderately covered by Flashpoint's Crimson, and still, even with the Zeus, I'm not sure that it's going to be enough here, Finch. Astral Authority are just waiting for a couple of these waves to stack up, probably going to look to re-siege that left-hand side Phoenix, because it'll be the first to respawn, and while that action is taking place, that'll be the chance for Astral Authority to start picking members off from Flashpoint, because they're just going to be scurrying everywhere, trying to clear out minions, trying to take care of Astral Authority. There's just so many different places to look, but nowhere to run.
Sash comes through, Keegs has to use beads very early. Delny is going to follow up, and they actually get some good return damage on the Chapo. He's at about half HP. Everyone going to sustain back in the fountain, but Astral just want to be here for the respawn left side Phoenix. As soon as it comes back, it goes down, and Astral look to re-siege.
Mid-fire wave still alive. Crimson looking to take care of that problem, though, for the rest of his team. But Astral Authority already starting to make their push onto the Titan. Delany going to be the first one taken up into the air. Windfire Wheels is good to go. Back onto the bottom, and Baronic to clean him up.
Baronic finds the double, in fact. Titan now at half HP, and no one can stand tall enough. Griffin finds the kill onto Matt Coys, and a stun land on the Keegs to force him back to base. Game one in dominant fashion from Astral Authority. That's a big way to start the set.
That is a massive way to start the set, Finch. And the fact that Flashpoint just didn't seem like they even knew what to do or where to depend on, because every single lane just lost.
And it's tough, man. You can see Chapo up, yelling, feeling the energy. That's what he brings to this team, I feel like, even more importantly than what he does in game, and he does that very well too, is that when this team is doing well, there's so much hype. It's so hard to stop them from continuing rolling when he's pumping that squad up. You can see the energy spreading throughout Astral. Flashpoint have got to find a way to answer, and fast.
Look, this is the first time that some of these players from Flashpoint have even made it to the finals, and by some, I mean only one, Matt Coys.
Yeah.
And he did not even get to hit level 12 until it was way too late in this match. But this is the type of pressure that you have to expect in the finals.
I'm going into the next one.
Well, the next one is ready to get into, because we got the Odin and Freya ban already unlocked. Moving on to the Merc, so it looks like we're gonna see a Giannis. Nope, RDO.
Wow, so
is Flashpoint's gonna pick Giannis here?
potentially, is that something Crimson likes to go for?
Crim does like to play it, but I'm pretty sure they will not pick it that early.
Well, and going with the Erlang Shin, who we didn't even see get banned out, but that's because we got to see two solo laners already picked at the start of the game, I believe.
Yeah, it was Pele for one side, and then it was a last pick Bracken for the other. So it was just kind of forgotten about more than anything.
But maybe it just didn't fit the comps that they were going for in that part of the game. Jingwei being picked there, they really enjoyed it. I mean, did so well on it, but the Giannis has to be coming out here, right?
I think so, honestly. But I don't know if Crimson's going to pick it for Flashpoint necessarily. So you hold on to the Giannis pick, bait out Crimson, because it's a high mechanical skill god. It's not a very easy god to pilot by any stretch.
Crimson definitely a bigger fan of just the drop it and leave it kind of gods, Outwash, Zeus.
Yeah, a little bit of Agni for him as well. And this is the point, I believe, last game where they drafted a Cupid against the Jingwei, which was basically the 1v1 matchup. You're trying to win that 1v1. It wasn't like very synergetic towards the rest of the composition. It was more like micro-focused in that 1v1.
I almost want to see Crim play the Zeus again, because I do like the Zeus pick on Crim. I just think they need to pick something elsewhere to switch up the draft. And with this Erlang, it provides a lot of 2v2 strong early fight with the Zeus, and I think they pick Zeus, they could probably get away with the Geb here, or they could go for Kuzumbo, and I'm pretty sure that's going to Koiz.
And what does the Kuzumbo offer?
Dual lane pressure, and that's exactly what they should get.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like a lot of the action was going on the dual lane, and they do take away that Giannis from Astral Authority. Now with Astral in response, I mean, they don't need to pick a mid laner here, but I would be afraid of them banning out maybe preferred mid laners in the second banning phase.
Yeah, Astral, I think, what gods do you think layers are going for? I'm thinking either Susanoo or Hunbats to chase down the portals.
I think Layers is not... I think they're just going to wait on Layers' God. They're just going to keep giving him this last pick, and it's whatever he thinks is going to work. I'm pretty sure he does not like the Susanoo into the Erlang because it provides so much early game that he's just going to get bullied a lot. But I expect him to maybe play his Thor. He loves playing Thor, and I expect him to play Thor this game.
I'm a big fan of that Anvil of Dawn. I hope to see some global pressure, but there's also Ratatasker if he wants to do that, something else that he really favors.
Yeah, we saw them play Ratatasker yesterday.
It was quite impressive stuff there.
All right, looks like an Uller being banned out from Astral Authority. And an Ao Kuang, they still preferring to ban that Ao Kuang, not wanting to give it to Astral.
It's just a lot of late game damage you don't want to deal with it on the magical front when there's just a lot easier to build around the physical defense.
So with the Kumba ban, do they think Kuzumbo is going in solo Erlang jungle?
I personally thought it was going to be Kuzumbo support, but Delny also does play it, so it's a pretty good flex option right now, but I prefer to see it go to Koiz for that pressure.
And loving the Kabrakan ban there. They just did so well soloing out players. Even the Sobek in his ult, Kabrakan would land it down there, not able to get out.
You don't want to necessarily build a Phantom as a relic choice when there's so many good team fighting choices between Horrific Emblem and the Shell. And I actually called it Susanoo. Giving up the early pressure, yes, but if you're looking for ways to lock down a Giannis that's going through portals, you got to be able to jet stream and chase them down.
I really do appreciate this, though, what each team is doing. Flashpoint's now going for that early aggression, making up for what they lost, and then Astral doing the opposite and switching it, going for that late game.
Yeah, I don't know how much I like this. I'd almost prefer Astro to keep up with that early pressure. They played it perfectly last time. They had buff timers on. They were getting picks, and they were getting those early golds. They were playing the early game well. Maybe they just want to play for the late game.
Well, the thing is, Susanoo can still make early game plays, but not against Erlang Shen. He's going to have to try to avoid him in the 1v1, but he could easily abuse this Amusin comp that doesn't have a gap closer, jump, or dash, only extra mobility, and if you get an early blink for layers, I expect him to set up a pitch tent in that dueling.
This AMC going into the Jingwei. Tell me about that boxing match that we're going to see.
I'm pretty sure Amusin Cobb just wins it like he does most matchups, and then Jingwei is just going to look to play safe. I know AMC is one of Keeks' favorite picks. He played it last year all the time, and he was still pulling it out this year, even when it didn't have as much priority. So I'm pretty sure Keeks just wants to get on something comfortable, win that laning matchup, and then play for the mid-game fights.
It's easy to see when a Jingwei is going to agility dash from the Persistent Gust. You can line up that Stinger very easily. But yet again, I think Keeks made thinking about the 1v1 a little bit too much, not thinking about how his Hunter choice is going to affect the rest of Astral.
Isn't Astral kind of going for the 1v1 picks as well, though, besides Cerberus?
Well, I think that Khepri is a good defensive option to allow Layers aggression and then that safety net to peel him back. I think that Cerberus, whatever pick that Veronica is going to go for, is going to amplify that damage with a Ghastly Breath. Jingwei is just super safe at the end of the day, can peel for herself, so you don't have to rely on anyone to support you.
All right, Nemesis and Habois finishing out the comps for Flashpoint and Astral, respectively.
Astral's doing so well in the picks and bans because of this last pick, Habois. Nemesis gets picked. She relies heavily on slows between Slice and Dice, Divine Judgment. Habois drops the carpet, not only makes himself slow immune, but the rest of his teammates.
I don't think we've seen such variety in team comps at the first two games that we have right now.
Yeah, they're just picking whatever they want, kind of. Franklin for this Nemesis, which he made a really big play, or I mean, he had a really big game on last year. He had his like 17-1 game or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think he's just looking to just put the team on his back and looking to hard carry this game. But that Hevo pick, like you said, perfect pick.
Veronic did a good job in game number 1 with the Giannis. This time it's going to be Crimson. We'll see how he fares with it, but this Habwa pick does a lot of damage, a lot of utility as well because of the carpet. Keep in mind, Giannis is going to chase you down with the portals, with the threshold to slow you down, but the carpet going to nullify that opportunity.
Looking at these 2 team comps, not asking who's going to win here, but who do you think, like, what's the early game going to be looking like?
Should be just Jumpa going into the jungle, looking for those early fights against this Susanoo. I really hope that they have something planned just to minimize as much pressure that the early lane can get as much pressure on this Susanoo as possible.
Real quick, who's got this, Anatoly?
Astral Authority.
Astral.
All right, gentlemen, it's game number 2 for Flashpoint, Wolves versus Astral Authority. Let's head on over to Finch and Taco.
Well, the desk feels confident about Astral Authority, and how could you not after that powerful Game 1 performance now into Game 2? Can Astral keep up that same dominance that we saw from him in the first game?
Well, it looks like that's exactly what they're aiming for, because all I'm seeing right now, Finch, is pressure everywhere.
Yeah.
Got Susanoo, Habwa, and I think that combination is going to work really smoothly between Veronic and Layers. Just multiple ways to knock members up. And the best part of it all is, just in case anybody does happen to get into danger, Chapo's got the revive with that Scare's Blessing.
It's really a big swap here from Chapo. That's what's been so impressive about his play. You go from the aggressive Naja support where he's diving in the backline, got to hit these precise sashes and ring bounces, now over to this Khepri where he's largely going to be in the backline peeling, where he's going to be able to save for people.
Careful with that one, Finch, because this is Chapo we're talking about.
It
I
is
don't know
Chapo.
if this is going to be too much of the Khepri love bug. He's not even using the skin, so I highly doubt my man is looking to be friendly with this Flashpoint roster. He's going to be probably a little bit more up in your face than you might originally assume, and Matt Koiz especially needs to be careful of it, because if he gets caught out by any of these Khepri pull-ins, that could be very problematic for a support early.
Early on in this match, but you see it, Keegs is playing the Amuzin combo pick we certainly don't see a lot of, but as they were alluding to on the desk, this is a god that can very much just win the 1v1 matchups. When he has those hives down, he has so much boxing potential. He's able to put down the honey as well. It's going to be tough, I would say, for Griffin to try and win those 1v1s the same as last game. That might not be his aim this time.
One of my favorite things, though, that Tolly actually mentioned on the desk was the fact that Keegs might have been looking a little bit too deeply towards this 1v1 boxing matchup between the Hunters. I'm not really too sold on this Amuzin Cobb against the rest of the Astral Authority composition. Their draft, for starters, has a Khepri in it, so you can already automatically assume that they're going to be going directly for those dives, and heavy dives at that, because they have one free get-out-of-jail card, and there's no reason to allow this AMC to just sit idly.
Well, as you already said, some aggression in dual lane, some aggression in mid too, with Jumpa in a little bit of trouble, able to just barely get away from Layers on that Susanoo. But I think you're right. Doesn't this draft feel like they all kind of picked to win their matchups more than like as a team? Almost like in response to game number 1. And that's something that can happen when you have that dominant of a loss. You go back to your comfort picks, you go back to gods where you can at least try and get into more of a rhythm. I just hope that they're able to translate it into their mid games so they can still have those fights.
And look, it's no surprise to see Flashpoint drawing it back to the basics for themselves, because there's a lot of pride and personality that gets involved with the Xbox scene especially, and because of that, I do think that the egos were hurt a little bit there from Flashpoint. There were numerous solo kills that took place. I think the main one that I'm looking towards is the one that happened with Keegs, because for the longest time, he was regarded as the #1 hunter on Xbox. When he first came back, everyone just assumed that he was going to be the #1 hunter on Xbox yet again, and still, Griffin is just running him down.
And even using the Aegis afterwards, I doubt intentional, but just kind of goes to show how little pressure he was truly under in that dual lane matchup, which might hurt more as the pull does land, the abduct onto Matt Koiz, rather, and they're not able to find much more damage on the back end, but they do have the clear advantage in terms of creeps, and they could move into the jungle if they'd like.
Still had a better start than last game, though, so Flashpoint have been accomplishing one thing for sure, and that's that they have made it through the earliest of laning phases. Keegs and McCoys, even for now, with Chapo and Griffin in this dual lane. Jumpa could be looking for an early attempt here at a gank, and seems like Chapo might just be taking the bait.
He absolutely is. This is in response to their aggression around this purple buff. And now they can come in looking for the root right into the slow as well. And not a ton of options available for Chapo, though he is going to try and find a way to reduce the damage. But it's this sprint that's really going to be the problem. The slow is there as well, joking for his life. Somehow, Chapo's still alive. The abduct to get away. You have got to be kidding me. He somehow makes it out.
Every single bit of investment
That's
there
insane.
from Flashpoint, and they are still unable to bring Chapo down. That has got to hurt.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we're talking about mental damage, I think rotating 4 people over, entirely predicting that purple buff invade, and still not being able to find the kill onto this lowly Khepri has got to hurt. And now look at this, undeterred, Astral are right back to look for the invade.
He's back for more.
Yeah.
Chapo's like, you can't kill me the first time. What makes you think that you're going to be able to do it a second time? And now, this time, it's going to be with Layers joining the fray. But the blink is good from Jumba, and it looks like an all-in commit so far for Chapo.
Well, this time he didn't have the sprint, so it's first blood for Flashpoint as they take down Chapo. It's up to Layers to try and make this one worth it. He puts out good damage, but not enough to bring down Matt Koiz, and that means Flashpoint will get away with their pick. Chapo this time bites off a little more than he can chew.
A little bit too greedy there from Astral's dual lane. Might have been feeling himself just a little bit too much as well there for Chapo.
Possible.
But at the very least, Flashpoint will end up confirming their own purple buff. Same goes for Astral Authority. And the fact that Astral didn't lose their purple buff in the process is actually a pretty strong sign because Flashpoint probably could have looked for an invade there onto Astral's jungle.
And I think what worked so well for them, Taco, is that they went off the buff and went onto Chapo right away, and that pulled them further away from Layers just long enough for them to essentially be able to have a 3-on-2. Layers finally comes back in on the backside to try and even things out, but at that point, the numbers advantage is still in Flashpoint's favor, and they're able to safely disengage.
This is also the kind of start that you want for a Nemesis. Nemesis can be a little bit slower to actually getting online just because her early game clear is not the greatest. Slice and Dice does the job, but not as efficiently as some of the other junglers out there. Layers could be encountering some of the same difficulties, however, and that might be part of the reason why we see this matchup taking place.
Wolves trying to make the 2v1 happen, and he certainly is able to put the fear into Jumpa. Remember, he's gone with this blink to be aggressive, so he doesn't have the beats to get away if he does get trapped in the Stygian Torment, and was able to very safely get away.
You have to appreciate this from Wolves, though, if you're Astral Authority teammate, because the fact that Wolves is able to push in against 2 different members from Flashpoint and still be confident enough that he isn't going to die in that moment, that is a lot of pressure relieved from Layers. He doesn't have to worry about this soul lane because he just knows that Wolves has it on lock.
You spoke a little bit about confidence. We may have seen a little bit too much from Chapo on the respawn first blood. If we can take a look back at how he ended up taking that spill on the left-hand side of the map, he went a little bit too aggressive, and Flashpoint were able to do a good job punishing him for it once he overstepped.
Chapo right now just chilling in the mid lane, trying to soak up a little bit of extra experience. But again, this play from Jumpa, he just understood that if he committed the blink right away, slice and dice Chapo before he had a real chance to escape or get any sort of teammate body blocks going in front of him, then they'd be able to capitalize on the pick.
And again, what was really important was that they were able to move away from Layers, who was making the rotation in, so that he couldn't try and pull or get the knockup off the ult or anything like that. They were able to continue all their damage onto Chapo and get that pick early on. And as you've already said, a much, much better start for Flashpoint here in Game 2 than in Game number 1. At this point in Game number 1, things are already starting to get out of control. Flashpoint have to at least feel better that they've been able to hold on so far.
They're stabilized, and that's all that really counts. When you have a game like the last game, you can expect that Astral Authority probably wanted to just rinse and repeat. That's all that you're ever looking for, because if they had been able to control the map as heavily as they did in Game 1, I think Flashpoint would just mentally not want to be alive right in those moments, because that hurts. As a player, I think anybody who has played Smite knows when you are 4 levels down against your opponent and you're just watching them do whatever the hell they want against you, it sucks.
And especially in a matchup with this much history. Last year going into Worlds, Myth Gaming was talking about how overconfident this Astral team was, how they weren't even practicing as much as normal. And it was something that they were like, we're going to come in and prove to them that they can't take us lightly. These are teams with a ton of history, and I don't even know how much they really like each other, if I'm being honest. They love to come in and prove who's better than the other. So to come in and have that kind of frustrating Game 1, it definitely could hurt.
That's something I've always loved about the console guys, though. the smack talk that takes place between these teams is always so much fun. All that thought Layers in a lot of trouble right now. Typhoon is good to stop the chase for now, and Stun's even better from Wolves, but Wolves looking to go in now.
Of course he is, because Jump was low, and Baronic right there for the follow-up. The water spout is more than enough to find the kill, but now this Hebo could be in a little bit of trouble. He's been backed up by Delny. He has some help coming in from Wolves, but the Erlong Shen to join the fray, a 3-man taunt, but the big ultimate coming through. Baronic shuts it down. 3 quick ones for Astral Authority.
That was everything that Baronic could have wanted and more. The crushing wave, being able to smack straight into both Koiz and Delany is everything you're asking for. But look out, here comes the man fight now between Griffin and Keeks. Keeks on the run currently though, doesn't have a hive right away to try and back him up with the honey.
But they're going to go right over to the Gold Fury as Astral Authority. They're not burning this particularly quickly. This might be more of a bait than anything, but they drop it and instead go for the Oracles. Can't quite find the fight, and now it's Astral looking for the disengage. But Flashpoint don't want to let them. They're on that Atlas of the Yellow River to give them some slow immunity, but no red buff there to steal, and Astral make it back out.
Jump gets the back Harpies, and that's all he gets for that engagement. You're gonna have to try and make up for that farm elsewhere. Both the buffs are up on Duo, but Griffin does need to be careful. Backed just in the nick of time before Jumpa has a chance to interrupt.
I think he used a slice and dice on those back Harpies, so that would have been his best way to stop the back of Griffin Slice a little bit sooner. So unfortunate that he could not stop the Jingwei, but in the end, it shouldn't hurt. But what a big fight from Astral Authority. That starts with somehow Layers being able to escape the initial gank attempt onto him and Wolves following up.
Layers didn't even seem all that concerned. He knew that he had the Typhoon charging right behind him. I think the problem came, Jumpa expended the first part of the Nemesis dash and then gets hit by the knockup from the Typhoon, which just brings everything to a halt because it's just space denial. That's all it was from Astral Authority on that disengage. And by the time that Flashpoint decided to turn around because the sprint had already worn off, it was too little too late. They were already too deep.
And we talked about the confidence communication in game 1. Well, that's what you saw in that play, because Wolves did not hesitate jumping in beyond Layers, even knowing he wouldn't be able to contribute a lot to that fight. He finds the stun, he finds the big Stitching Torment, and brings them all right back to Baronic, who has the damage waiting.
Koiz right now, just trying to clear up a little bit of the vision to get some more in Flashpoint's favor. Oracles have worn off on this Gold Fury, which is a positive for Flashpoint because it isn't... It basically signs that Astral Authority no longer have the free visibility of that Gold Fury. So if Flashpoint wanted to take a look at that gold, all they need to do is sentry it.
Once again, though, a small lead is already starting to develop in favor of Astral Authority. About 2,000 gold, and even more so in the experience mark, about 3,000 there. So even though it's not as bad as game 1, already Flashpoint are still looking down the barrel of a lead. This could be a play, though. Chapo a bit too far forward. The knockup's good, but they don't have any more follow-up, though. Baronic does take good poke, and now the pull here as well.
But that wind Siphon was just all too huge. Beautiful of Seto. Matt Koiz right now on the retreat, getting a knockup by the Typhoon out of Layers, but Matt Koiz and Crimson still looking to get chased. That was Keeks with a kill, by the way.
And they were already able to proc the res there from Chapo. He does have the Adduct to try and move himself away, but the immediate beat, it's Keeks who wants a little bit more. Wolves able to find Matt Koiz on the back end, but Crimson with the autos, Delny with the kill on the Layers. They make this a big fight, already 3 dead on the side of Astral, and the portal allows for Crimson to reposition, and Flashpoint make it out with their lives.
Anything you can do, I can do better. That's Crimson right now on this Giannis, just trying to show up against Baronic on this Habois, and that rotation from Keeksman was just so unexpected into the backside, but the fact that he was able to bring down Baronic, thought the Wolves forced to jump away over the wall, won't be successful in trying to bring down that red buff from Flashpoint.
I like the idea, perhaps Wolves thinking that there would be some backs after that last engagement. He could have a chance to steal that buff, but that was not the case. There was immediate response there from Flashpoint. He has to jump away, but Griffin needs to be careful. He might not recognize that Matt Koiz is nearby. The pin lands, immediate jump on the back end of the knockup. Airstrike still here, so Griffin should be okay, and he makes his way out.
Knockup's actually working against Matt Koiz there. Probably should have gone for the Mink form up against a Jingwei. Every time he turtles, he's just giving Matt or Griffin an even better escape option.
That's a good point. That's what makes this Jingwei so strong into the Erlong and the Freya as we transition over to the solo side where Delny defends his buff, but the stun lands right into the pull from Layers that forces the Watery Grave from Delny, who's able to make it back to the tier 2, unable to get the buff or the kill.
Baronic with a nice ward into the mid-left Harpies, but it won't make too much of a difference. Matt Koiz is going to make sure to sentry it right away. And the big thing as well, out of that last engagement here for Flashpoint, it's just a heat check, really. They bring down 3 members of Astral Authority, so their damage is clearly alive enough that they can actually start feeling enough of an impact.
It's Koi's on the backside, though. 3 space and time is good and hits 2. That means the immediate crushing wave from Baronic to find a kill, and he has the Scarab's Blessing on to keep him alive, but Crimson patient waits it out, but it's enough time for Baronic to reposition. He's still in a little bit of trouble, gets away from the unstable vortex, but look at Matt Koi's trying to lurk his way back in.
Matt Koi's, though, could end up getting caught out if he's not careful. There's still Griffin and Chapo that he's got to deal with. Griffin, though, going to get pinned in place, so the knockup isn't good for now, but Airstrike's even better. Matt Koi's going to end up going down to it.
And now Jump in some trouble. He's going to drop down his own ultimate on top of Chapo, trying to give himself some protections, and he is able to make it out, but that's a 2 for 0 in favor of Astral. A great jungle skirmish if you're a fan of the Chaos side.
You can just hear Griffin laughing all the way home to the bank right now. Persistent Gus could not have been better placed. The fact that he was able to interrupt Matt Koi's on that dash away and then find the airstrike execution, everything you could ask for.
And still, the lead favoring Astral. Flashpoint have to be a bit more careful about where they're choosing to take these engagements. The lead not nearly as large as last game, but it's still favoring Astral Authority here at this point. Now, Flashpoint have to be careful. I mean, they're about a level down across the board now in every one of their matchups, except in the duo lane. They gotta be a little bit more mindful.
Keegsmate just looking to clear everything out and head back to base. And interesting start, actually. We've seen this a couple of times from the Pro League on PC at least, but that was back in Season 4 era when AMC ran this map. But right now, Keegs opting for the Talaria boots, so it seems that he's clearly concerned about his movement speed in and out of battle. I think that this is a smart pickup buy because there is a ton of mobility, or at least a ton of dive capability on the side of Astral Authority. Chapo also, of course, helping to open that up a little bit, but this AMC has to be able to get away from layers particularly.
It does seem like he's leaning into the strengths of Keegs, the movement speed. He even looks like he's going into some early crit right afterwards, something we see the Jingweis do a lot of the time as well to try and synergize with her own kit, but Keegs wants to try and get that extra damage on as often as he can. So we'll see if that's where he elects to go. I imagine the Poison Star will be the call. But so far, this dual lane has gone much better for Flashpoint. I think that the Keegs and Matt Koi's can feel better about it. There has been some overstepping by this Erlong Shen support, but he hasn't let that allow him to fall too far behind Champo. He's still very much relevant.
The main one I'm keeping an eye on for Flashpoint, though, has got to be Crimson on this Giannis. I mean, this mid-lane matchup is by far one of the most exciting matchups you could ever ask for on Xbox because Baronic and Crimson are both definitely looked at as pioneers of the mid-lane.
Griffin's the one that takes some poke. A nice knock up there from Baronic as Jumpa tries to come back in. The one who's aggressive here is Chapo. They can find nothing more on the back end. I agree with you, Taco. That mid-lane matchup is the one you want to keep your eye on in particular. In fact, right now, Crimson rather low on mana. I don't know if he wants to stick around for this engagement. He won't be able to provide very much at all.
The main advantage that the Astral Authority have around these objectives is their confirmation, because Crimson, sure, he's got the Unstable Vortex and through space and time steal capability, but that is nothing when it comes to a water spout, crushing wave, or even just the water canning out of Baronic. There's just so many different ways that Baronic can spam damage against these objectives for the big burst confirms.
Threatening to start the Gold Fury, but haven't started it just yet, so they're still trying to see if they can force Flashpoint in. Remember, Crimson still hasn't had a chance to back. He's considering it now, and that will allow him to fill up that mana bar so he can contribute properly, but Astral are not forcing the pace just yet. Now they finally start to pull the Gold Fury, and Jumpa Delny's still very much around. Crimson could always through space and time back in if need be, but Gold Fury already below half. If he is going to make a move, he might need to make it quickly as Delny gets hit by the Abduct, the Paralyzing Spit right there behind it, and already they have removed the Kuzenbo from the equation.
Griffin got smacked, though, by that through space and time, but because he's the Jingwei, he's just going to back right away.
Yeah.
And with that pick, it's a 4v4 currently, but Griffin will be back in no time at all. Astral Authority definitely still poised and ready to go on this gold. The question is, does Flashpoint want to meet him?
And this is such an important fight. This is when this can turn from a regular lead into a lead that can be tough to fight into. As a good job, Wolves jumping away from the damage coming out from Crimson. They want to try and make use of this 5v4. Jumpa stuck on the left-hand side, trying to find a way to wrap around, but they've got layers there to play defense.
Gold Fury already down to 50%. Layers will be spotting out Jumpa in no time at all. He's going to knock him up. Barani looking for the follow-up. Typhoon has been expended, but so far, Keegsmate is the only one losing his purification beads.
And Flashpoint can feel good about this. They have the health bars of Astral relatively low to the point where Astral certainly do have to back off. That was with a 5v4 advantage, and Astral still could not find their way into the Gold Fury pit. A great, patient defense from Flashpoint.
Frying pan set to simmer for now if you're a Flashpoint, but they can't rest too easy for too long because Astral Authority, they are always looking for more and what's next. That's the problem that I think Flashpoint keep running into. Delaney will have a chance to respawn, but it's that slow whittling away at the experience in Gold lead that I think could start to become problematic here for Flashpoint. Sure, they were able to keep Astral off the objective for now, but Griffin just managed to finish off that Executioner. He's going to start having a little bit more damage against these objectives, and I'd imagine that his next direction could possibly be for Crit or the Kin size. I think the Kuzumbo was a strong enough deterrence factor typically against Hunters that even as the Jingwei and Crit being so favorable, it's still probably not ideal here.
That's a good point, and so far they've done a good job of punishing Delney when he's been in these fights. They've been able to lock down the Kuzumbo and shred him relatively quickly. If Griffin goes too hard into Crit, that might shut that plan down. So that'll give us a good idea of who they plan on target selecting once we see a little bit more from Griffin Slays' build. But Astral, they want to try and start things one more time. They've got Keegsmate locked down, and the Moose and Cobb had no options to find a way out. A 5v4 now for Astral, and they send Jumper running on the left-hand side. He can't stick around.
And this all comes back in full circle because Keegs just used his purification beads at the Gold Fury, and then shortly afterwards, Astral Authority choose to back off, but now it's going to be Delaney getting wrapped up in Chapo's love bug arms, and it's not a love hug at all. Griffin going to bring down Delaney, but now it's Jumbo on the retreat.
And they've got Baronic with the Scarab's Blessing there, but well timed by Matt Koiz. They find the kill, but at what cost? They've already lost 3 members on the other side, and the Abduct brings Matt Koiz right back in. The knock-up there waiting as well, and Layers finds a double kill on the backside. They may have lost Baronic, but a 4-for-1 feels pretty good if you're Astral Authority.
And Griffin not wasting any time at all. He's going to go straight for that Gold Fury shortly afterwards. Keegsmate has had a chance to respawn, but he's an Moose Cobb. He's not going to be here in time at all. Crimson already knows, and the best possible option here left for Flashpoint is for him to just split push on the opposite side of the map. Gold Fury, the first one of the game, going to be all Astral Authority.
And this is why Astral keep hovering around the Gold Fury, I feel like, Taco, is because they're so good at punishing when you stick your nose just a little bit too far in, and they've been able to isolate Delney several times. They've been able to isolate Matt Koiz. Keegs, for sure, he has no dash, no jump of any kind. If anyone from Flashpoint's a little bit too far forward, the CC chain is real.
All Astral have been doing, though, is just using Layers' Wind Siphon to suck everybody into the center of Astral Authority, and then they just smother whoever gets trapped inside.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a Venus flytrap, actually.
It really is, and it's very scary if you're on the side of Flashpoint trying to find your way in. And this is what's so impressive about Astral. They've now shown 2 different ways to win. The first game, they just kind of forced it with overwhelming pressure right from minute 1. In game 2, Flashpoint have adapted to that very well, so Astral is slowly whittling away at them, forcing them to take multiple Gold Fury engagements, and so far Flashpoint have not had the right answers.
I also really like this hub block because of the Atlas of the Yellow River into the Nemesis.
Yeah,
there's no hopes for this Slice and Dice to ever be effective in slows. Or even the ultimate, exactly. If Jumbo tries to give chase, he's going to be the one getting slowed down. And it's so unfortunate as well because I think that this Nemesis pick actually was a strong choice here for Flashpoint. It just has not had a chance to come to fruition because of how often Astral Authority keep telling him no. They just keep swinging him down. And every single opportunity that Jumbo has had outside of the first couple ganks that he was successful against Chapo, I mean, it really has not worked out that well.
Astral Authority is showing just how much control they have over the map by grabbing that Pyromancer uncontested. No way for Flashpoint to come back in. It's not quite as good as a Gold Fury, but free gold is free gold, and Astral will certainly take it. Wolves has the jump, so he should be A-okay here, and he certainly is able to get back out. But they gotta find a way, I feel like, to deal with Baronic on this Habwa. The real problem has been Champo putting the Scarab's Blessing on him and allowing one more rotation of abilities out because you have to halt your DPS. You can't kill him or he'll just end up getting rezzed anyway and pulled back to the Capri.
And that's where Flashpoint keep falling short in these engagements. Jumbo actually gonna lose half of his health already to Layers and Griffin. Mild Chase starting to break out, but Astral Authority gonna give it up for right now. Instead, they're going to head over into the mid lane and maybe start looking towards a tower siege.
Crimson does still have the portal, so he is able to make it away one more time. Red buff just respawning, and there it is. Layers recognizes it. He'll go back and steal the buff. McCoy's nearby, and he won't be able to defend with the tier 1 tower, the bigger bounty. Astral finds that in the middle lane to open the map up a little bit more. Slowly, they've grabbed nearly all of them. Only the tier 1 tower and duo remains.
Crimson trying to play defense on this T2 tower, but I don't think that Astral is giving him many other options of where else to go on the map. Jumpa getting harassed even at his back. Harpies 22.5 minutes into the match, Finch. It is just not looking all that clean from Flashpoint's side of things in terms of the execution, and Astral Authority just keep prospering because of it.
You used the right word earlier. It's smothering, it's stifling what Astral Authority have been able to do to Flashpoint. They're leaving them so few options in terms of where to go for farm, which targets to try and pick inside of team fights, where can they position. Astral Authority are leaving them virtually no options, and Flashpoint have got to find some kind of way. Last time it was to slow things down. This time they have to try and find an opening. When do they get to be the ones who are the aggressors?
First of all, you've got to figure out a way to get Keegsmate to survive an engagement, because this Amu Zenkab is only going to keep running out of options in terms of jungle pathways that he can reasonably survive in, and Astral Authority know it. That is why they're so willing to fall back as soon as they see relics get burned on the side of Flashpoint from the carries, because they know for a fact that it's just a matter of time before they put themselves even the slightest bit out of position.
Oh no.
And here it comes, the collapse on the Keegsmate. They're looking for it. They will get the beads already, and that's going to force the retreat initially, but just wait, because this team is still hovering on that left-hand side.
But this is exactly what you were just saying, right? They're okay with not having actually grabbed Keegsmate just now, because what they really want is the purification beads. He has no other options now that they've been able to grab it. Yes, he has the Aegis, but once you are in this CC chain from Astral Authority, you're not getting out as the last tier 1 tower goes down.
And because Keegsmate has such low survivability without his purification beads, Astral Authority just continue to strong arm away that T1 tower in the dual lane. Now 5-man grouping around this red buff. Delaney here to try and help play defense, but it's already dropped in favor of Astral.
Delaney is at least able to push Wolves a little bit further towards the team, but he might have initiated for the dog, stitching to him a little bit too early, and Delaney will not get pulled, so they'll find a little bit more damage from the Ghastly Breath. But Chapo took quite a bit of poke himself, and that forces out the sprint defensively through space and time, provides an avenue for the rest of Flashpoint to rejoin into the fight, but Koi's might be a little bit too far ahead of everyone else. They can't find much yet.
McCoy's, though, going to be able to blink in. Nice beads, though, from Layers and a Typhoon just to make sure that the disengage could still go through. Flashpoint wanted Astral Authority's red buff, but I don't think they were actually able to confirm it. No, instead, they're going to turn their eyes towards this Gold Fury, but Astral looking to wrap back around.
They absolutely are, but this has been a good response from Flashpoint so far, but now they have to survive the fight. Layers finds Jumper early on, even though it's the Chaos side that's able to get the Gold Fury. They want Delaney as well. Thorns are ticking, sure, but they can pull him right back in the threshold to speed him up, and Astral only find one pick on the back end of that fight.
One for a Gold Fury, though, all things considered. I think that could have gone just about as well as it did there, Finch, because Flashpoint could possibly end up losing their T2 tower. Now Astral Authority understanding that everybody just backed at the same exact time. This is ample opportunity to bring down the T2.
This was a good fight for Flashpoint right up until this tier 2 tower went down. That essentially is even to the Gold Fury value they just got. Only it's Astral who found a kill. They took down Jumper early on, but that was so smart. They chased them back from the red buff and were almost able to win the fight.
It's actually even better for Astral Authority too, because they pushed back Flashpoint, and not only that, but they understand that if the map pressure is then funneled away from the dual lane, they have all this space that they can work with now, and even less space for Keegsmate to try and look for survivability, and he won't be able to turn towards dual lane if he's planning on retreat options. He's going to have to stick around a little bit more towards mid and solo side, but that just means that if Astral Authority can be successful in finding a pick or two, that's a fire giant.
It absolutely is, and they have their path open now towards a Phoenix as well, as they will do a little bit of counter warding to slow down the information for Flashpoint. Delaney is the one that has to try and poke his head in and make sure the Fire Giant's not being stripped away from them while they're not nearby. They'll settle for the Pyromancer, at least for now, as Flashpoint don't yet have a way in.
Pyromancers just to draw attention. They want Flashpoint to come to this pit right away, because the sooner the fight starts, probably the better it's going to go for Astral Authority. They're the ones with the lead in terms of itemization and experience, so the sooner that they get to continue applying this pressure on the Flashpoint, the better.
By about 8,000, Taco, is that goal. Griffin trying to at least bait someone into the Fire Giant, but they've been able to lock down Delny one more time. That forces the Watery Grave early yet again, but he is able to make it back out.
That's a huge loss of a team fighting ultimate, by the way, because that is the interruption factor that Flashpoint are kind of relying on to prevent Astral Authority from just running away on that Atlas of the Yellow River from the Habois.
And now it's time to start the Fire Giant one more time for Astral Authority. Delny, of course, is the only one that can go forward, but Astral drop it. They're trying to see if they can find a pick. Nothing there. They'll head right back to the pit.
Astral, though, still feigning that they want this Fire Giant. No, Wolves actually not joking around any longer. Delny gonna get pulled in, already popping the thorns immediately, but he's already down to half health.
Baronic uses the ultimate. Now he might be a little bit too far forward. The Scarab's Blessing comes down, and that gives him his second life so he can find his way back out. But Stygian Torment finds two and brings him right back to the Typhoon. But it's Keegsmate who finds Griffin Slays. A big fight for Flashpoint so far.
That was massive for Flashpoint. The fact that Astral Authority's target focus was shifted onto 3 separate people is the main reason why that fight goes south. But Flashpoint can't rest easy. They might have gotten the pick on the Griffin, but ultimately it was just a hard reset in the end.
And I think the problem is that it's becoming harder now for Delny to be the target for Astral. They can't lock him down and burn him fast enough the way they could 10 minutes ago, at the 18-minute mark. Delny goes down to half HP, sure, but it's because Griffin has to overcommit and Keeg's able to find a nice kill, and now it's Flashpoint the ones who are threatening the Fire Giant.
They want this Fire Giant more than anything else right now, but that could also spell their own demise. They know the Baronic doesn't have that crushing wave for the confirmation,
That's
but
right.
Water Cannon still got to be careful of.
And Layers is looping around the backside as well. That's one more thing to look at. Unstable Vortex is there, so they certainly know where he's positioned. They're able to get the pull and at least force in Chapo on this Kepri, but right into the back line goes the rest of Astral, but it's Crimson who finds the kill on the Chapo. Early on, Delny finds Baronic. Layers at the very least able to get to Keegs, but Flashpoint showing some signs of life here in game 2 as they send Astral Authority back.
But this is all that Astral Authority wanted. Wolves just trying to buy time. He's just distracting everybody from Flashpoint because they're not on the Fire Giant. In the end, Wolves is going to end up falling to jump. A nice pick to add on to the collection here of the other 2 that Flashpoint already established, but still 4v2. Doesn't seem like Flashpoint are really all that concerned, though, about their Hunter not having the Fire Giant. They're willing to sacrifice Keegs if it means for the greater good.
And Layers is trying to punish them by at least getting the tier 2 tower in middle lane, but there will be no one to contest the Fire Giant. Astral Authority end up slipping a bit, and it's Flashpoint who grabbed the objective for their team. It's a bit slow because they don't have that sustained DPS coming out from Keegsmate, but in the end they grab the objective, but they do have to trade away a couple lives in the tier 2 tower in mid.
Real momentum swing right now, though, for Flashpoint that they've got to continue to capitalize off of. The main focus should be just pushing down these T2 towers and ensuring that these are clean fights in case Astral decides to contest. Although I'd imagine as Astral Authority still have a little bit of this itemization lead for now, that they're probably just going to look to see what poke they can get off of the T2 towers, maybe just a little bit of damage checks for the Habois and for Layers to see how well they can line each other's abilities up. But the Phoenix defenses are going to be what's most interesting here because Astral Authority, I don't think, have very consistent ways to clear out those minions without getting up close and personal with Flashpoint. And I think that's kind of the position that Flashpoint want them to be in.
They have to step a little bit too far forward. I think that's a great point that Astral might have some troubles with their defense. It's Gold Fury now being looked at by Flashpoint. This could potentially be trouble as Astral are certainly here in large enough numbers to try and make a defense. They've got good damage onto Delny, but they end up pushing in Chapo. But Chapo right where he wants to be. Now he's in the thick of the fight and able to force Flashpoint off the objective, at least for now. And Astral start to pull the gold.
Astral Authority, though, they've got to be careful. They've already overstepped their boundaries once before, and it ended up costing them the fight and a Fire Giant, and arguably their lead.
Astral, though, still barely able to hold on to that lead, at least for a moment, so they'll see if they can try and take this fight. I can't believe how much they're committing onto this Gold Fury here at the 31-minute mark. It's not that important, fellas, as they want to try and get it pulled back in, but Astral don't want to let it go away either.
Astral are just happy to waste their time. This is Fire Giant time, baby.
Yeah.
This is time that Flashpoint are losing. Delany down to half health yet again, being the central focus for Astral Authority for a moment. But this Gold Fury, nothing's being done right now. The time is just ticking on this fire.
No, I 100% agree this is better for Astral. It's a fight on a neutral site, and it's Flashpoint who are the ones wasting the time on the Fire Giant buff, and yet again, Layers trying to go for the wraparound play, though he is right on top of a ward, so they'll certainly see. Wolves makes his way in. A nice knockup comes through, and Delny yet again is the target, pulled back in, forced into the Watery Grave early, but Stygian Torment's able to find Matt Koiz. He is able to get back out with the turtle form, but Stinger is also on cooldown now from Keeks.
Good Aegis from Griffin, gonna avoid the damage out of the Unstable Vortex. A couple members falling really low, Chapo being one of them. This Khepri can't use that Scare's Blessing on himself. Matt Koiz, though, not gonna get pinned in place, and Chapo gonna be the first to fall.
It's Crimson who finds him, and Jumpa punishes Griffin on the backside of it. 2 kills now for Flashpoint to get this engagement started off, and it might be a bit of trouble for Wolves as he's been rooted, still has the jump and makes it over the wall, but Flashpoint finally, with this prolonged engagement around the Gold Fury, are able to turn things in their favor, but where do they go from here?
They have 1 minute left on Fire. They might get a T2, they might get 2 of the T2 towers, but wasting so much time at that Gold Fury, I don't know if that was worth it, Finch. They've got to try and make this push for the Phoenix. They still have all 5 members, and that seems to be the intention here from Flashpoint, understanding that there's still 15 seconds and 25 left until Chapo and Griffin are back in the action.
Baronic still has his ultimate, though. He's got to be the focal point of this fight if you're on the Chaos side, because him finding a big ultimate with the Crushing Wave could turn things around. Mid-Phoenix is finally starting to take some poke as Keeg makes his way in, but Astral, they don't have a way to get in and try and stop this. Now it's the engagement from Layers and the Stitching and Torment all at once. Layers finds the first kill, but the Mid-Phoenix will certainly go down. Baronic takes out Crimson, so it's 2 kills, but they trade out the Firebird.
And it's a hard blow for Flashpoint, losing their mid laner. Crimson has been so instrumental in the success that Flashpoint has had in this game. Jumpa just getting torn apart left, right, and center by Astral Authority. Signs of life this time around from Astral, because they are looking to push down this right-hand side. There is only 1 T2 tower remaining on the map for them. They did lose their mid-Phoenix on the process, though, so that is a pretty heavy blow from Flashpoint.
I would certainly say so. The way that things are looking for Flashpoint in Game 1 and the beginning of Game 2, you got to feel good that they at least converted that Fire Giant into 1 Phoenix. Now comes the difficult part where they have to try and defend this counter punch from Astral as the Tier 2 tower in right comes tumbling down. Another 1,500 gold for the boys in red. And they're going to head back towards this Fire Giant pit, though there is no FG, at least not for another 40 seconds. They'll settle for the Pyro.
Astral have to be careful. Crimson's going to be up with that through space and time by the time Fire Giant respawns. They all just need to back to base right now, buy whatever they can, and pick up some sentries, because vision is going to be the most important part of this Fire Giant pit. One thing that I've definitely noticed is that Layers has been very unsuccessful with looking for these flanker rounds with the Susano because of the ward vision from Flashpoint. If Flashpoint can continue to have the map awareness that they've been using to their advantage, then Astral Authority are just going to continue to struggle, because they are very dependent on the Susano being able to catch somebody by surprise from Flashpoint.
It has been largely pick reliant for them in the early game, I would say, to get to this lead, and Flashpoint have made that more difficult by grouping up correctly. But Flashpoint have got to be happy that they at least have themselves on even footing in the late game, something they couldn't have dreamed of in Game 1. Essentially, this fight around the Fire Giant could spell the way this game is going, as Phoenixes are exposed on both sides. In fact, Flashpoint have a path right through the Titan, through that middle lane.
Crimson has been a monster all game long, by the way, with this Giannis. I have a heavy feeling that whoever comes out on top in this game, Giannis might just not make it through the first picks and bans phase.
Whoever has had it has looked strong so far, as the root does not pop the bubble from Matt Koiz. I'm sure that was the goal from Champo as he looks over the wall, but the most of the space around the Fire Giant pit seems to have gone to Astral, as Delny gets caught out yet again. He's going to find the push onto Wolves right towards the damage from Keegs, but it's not too much.
Not too much just yet, but for right now, Flashpoint, Delany and Matt Koiz, yet again, trying to take up that front line positioning. And Chapo's got to be careful as well not to get poked out too soon here. Purification Beam's already expected.
Oh my goodness!
3-man through space and time!
That hits nearly everybody. Huge for FP to be able to push back Astral Authority with the through space and time, and that's set up by the initial blink in by Matt Koiz that forces everyone to retreat. And now the Fire Giant has to feel as good as theirs if you're on the Order side. There's no way for Astral back in. A huge fight from Flashpoint.
Wolves knows that it's over. As soon as that through space and time hit all 3 members from Astral Authority underneath that T2 tower, it was just the immediate retreat. No longer trying to take up that jungle fight. Good recognition, though, from Griffin that the rest of his team had already lost out on the Fire Giant opportunity, so he just starts pushing up the mid wave as much as possible, just trying to make Flashpoint waste whatever time he can with that Fire Giant buff.
Well, the first time this set, it's felt like Astral are truly on the back foot. With all else essentially even this late into the game, the Fire Giant buff gives Flashpoint their first true advantage if they want to move toward the sieging stage. Though, I mean, Gold Fury's up. They spent a lot of time there last time. We'll see if that's where they want to go again. But certainly sieging could look stronger. There's still 2 tier 2 towers left in both duo and solo.
I'm just keeping an eye on Crimson for the rest of this game because he has been on fire with this Giannis, and as strong as Baronic looked on it in game 1, Crimson is not someone who's going to be outdone here, and he is here to remind everybody that he is still the world's winner from the last season.
That's right. Really, and the entirety of this Flashpoint roster is, aside from Matt Koiz, who was not there. Our very own Inbound was the one that was in that slot last time. Matt Koiz, though, doing a good job for them here in Season 5. The Tier 2 tower in left will come down, but Flashpoint still playing this one a bit slow. They've got plenty of time left, though, on this buff. There's no real need for them to rush through this just yet. They want to try and pull up some more minions in mid, as that mid Phoenix has finally respawned.
Left-hand side going to be aggressed onto by Jumpa, but he'll be met by Layers. No real surprises there to see the jungler v jungler fight. And with this mid Phoenix having respawn, that is going to make Delaney a little uncomfortable for wanting to get up close with this Astral roster. But now the charge-in has begun, but everybody's going to get pulled in by that Stingent Torment. Great job from Wolves to try and prevent the push initially, but I'm just not sure that it's enough.
It was a good counter, but now the mid Phoenix is the one that's being threatened. Wolves is able to step forward and force them back, but Delaney has a good response with the push, and that does slow him down for now. Somehow Astral have kept this weakened mid lane Phoenix alive, at least through the initial pushes.
I think Flashpoint just need to group up at this point, but hold that thought because Layer is going to get eaten up by that Nemesis ultimate, but that's all it was. There's nothing more to follow it. Jumpa drops the Nemesis ult, but can't go in.
But still patience from Flashpoint, trying to find their way back in, and Astral have done a great job splitting up on this defense, keeping the left side pushed up and not losing this mid Phoenix and trying to give it a chance to at least regain some of the health it lost after it was reformed. So far, Flashpoint have to wait on this next minion wave to come in.
It's surprising, though, that Astral Authority are just able to get their mid Phoenix up and running again, and Flashpoint still don't feel comfortable enough with fully committing to trying to bring it back down again. They know that if Keegs gets a little bit too close, that all of Astral are just going to choose to try and bring him down.
And they're very much worried about this ultra from Layers, but Sprint comes out from everyone, which has to be the go button. They head right toward the mid Phoenix. Baronic charges through space and time and gets good damage to the backside. Griffin Slays is already incredibly low. A big knockup does land in the Delaney, but the mid lane Phoenix goes down one more time. They try and turn around on the Wolves, but the dog able to take up too much damage, and Flashpoint get what they came for.
Just look at how much damage that one unstable Vortex did against Griffin. He just came out of the fountain, by the way, landed with that Jingwei passive, and immediately went back down to a third of his health. The damage that Crimson has been putting up this game is incredible in general. Just look, he's almost at the 29,000 mark.
It's been pretty absurd from Giannis, who often gets said to have inconsistent damage. Well, nothing has been inconsistent here from Crimson in this game number 2, and they're going to need him to continue that performance if they want to slow down this momentum from Astral. They barely are able to take down that mid Phoenix one more time and keep it weakened, but they find no more progress other than that, Taco, and Astral can once again feel comfortable after pushing up that minion wave coming out to defend the Fire Giant.
It's really all just going to boil down to whether or not Crimson can continue to connect with these through space and times. The fact that he clipped Griffin in the backline last time was the main reason why Flashpoint were finally able to break into the base of Astral and bring down that mid Phoenix one more time. Without that through space and time damage, though, even with these through space or unstable vortexes chunking like they have been, I'm still not sold that it's going to be enough overall to prevent Astral Authority for just looking from the counter collapse.
I'm very surprised in all honesty that Flashpoint have fallen back to that strategy, though. I mean, is that really the most optimal way to be using that Giannis ult, is to be trying to find the snipes every fight? Eventually, you're not going to be able to find it, and now one of your best team fighting ultimates is down, and you got very little out of it.
Risk first reward. That's really all it comes down to at the end of the day. And if you're Crimson and you're on fire like he has been all game long, I can't really blame him for it.
As long as he's able to hit the shots, Flashpoint will continue to look strong in this game. Astral Authority have had some struggles in game 2 trying to find a way to slow down Flashpoint, who finally answered back, but this is the engagement now from Matt Koi's Stinger does land, and Layers in some trouble on the left-hand side, but once again, Crimson Patient has not let loose the ultimate yet, and they'll fall back after getting some good poke.
That was 2 pretty big team fighting ultimates, though, for Flashpoint already in use, and now Astral Authority feeling a little bit more confident with contesting this Fire Giant. That is until
Wow.
Barani just gets absolutely destroyed by Delaney on this Kuzumbo.
And Griffin Slays has to use the airstrike defensively just to try and retreat, forced to use the Scared's Blessing. That does keep Wolves alive, but now Flashpoint have a chance to burn down the tier 2 tower on the solo side. Another good fight, and this one not reliant on the through space and time. It did not do very much at all. They were able to find this one off Delny and Jumpa's work.
This Kuzumbo has been Flashpoint's saving grace time and time again, because Barani has not been able to do anything this game in comparison to how effective he was in match number 1. The reflective damage, he's just killing himself in the process.
He's not going to be able to burst through this Kuzumbo fast enough any longer. They've got to try and find a way to get past him. And what we've seen most part from Wolves is jumping in and using the ult, but it hasn't been enough up until now.
Everybody from Flashpoint on this right-hand side, they want more blood from Astral Authority. The question is, are they going to be able to find it? Chapo going to be the first one pinned down by Koiz in the process, but Wolves still keeping everything under control for now.
Forces the Watery Grave from Delny. They take quite a bit of poke from that right side Phoenix. I don't think that was quite the way they wanted that push to go, and they'll fall back at least for now. In the 4v5, Astral do a good job keeping the Phoenix alive, but remember, Flashpoint have a ton of time still on this Fire Giant buff. They can afford to slow things down, fall back, and look for another push.
This is actually the first time I think that we've ever seen Flashpoint not just use up all of their Fire Giant time on one objective. Every other moment beforehand, whether it was the Gold Fury or this respawn of the mid-Phoenix, Flashpoint waited up until that minute-and-a-half mark with 30 seconds left to run on FG. So they've been cutting it close to the wire on more than one occasion, and eventually that could end up being their downfall.
Well, a pretty good motivation to back might be a 3K pot for Crimson. It looks like that's what they were able to go back and grab. He already has the Rotted Tahuti double pin between Desolation and the Obsidian Shard, even Soul Gem on that one big proc for a ton of extra damage. So whoever he hits with this ultimate will be saying good night, and either going back to the fountain voluntarily or without their say.
But that same effect could still take place here for Astral as well if Veronica's finally able to connect with a single crushing wave onto either Jumpa, Crimson, or Keegsbane. All he has to do is get that damage out there and get away from Delaney. The problem is he just doesn't have a blink or any real way to get that close into the backline from Flashpoint. So that's just huge commitments to Flashpoint's front line, because Delaney and Koiz have been eating up the brunt of the damage.
Remember, this mid-Phoenix is the weakened one that Flashpoint was able to take down earlier on. That's why we see them focusing here yet again. It shouldn't be as hard to take down. Already, Delny is inside the area of that Firebird and looking for a little bit more damage, but they find nothing the first time through. Chapo and Wolves prove a very stalwart defense, and Flashpoint have to reset.
Slow and steady does win the race in the end after all, though, so that's never something that we can ever factor out here for Flashpoint. 44 minutes and rising. These death timers are going to be scary now, because whether it's for Flashpoint or for Astral Authority, whoever dies is probably not going to make it back in time for the final push.
Koiz goes in once more to the back line, finds the knock-up onto Griffin Slays, but not much else. Not much damage onto the mid-Phoenix yet, but Layers gets poked out very significantly on left-hand side. He has to fall back and jump free to put damage on left side Phoenix. Meanwhile, Delaney trying to open up the door to the mid-Phoenix, and Keegs is right there to start pumping in the damage, but holding it all in is Chapo, absorbing it, but the left side all along ends up falling. Stygian Torment pulls back two, through space and time, finds no one, but they are able to lock down the Wolves, who jumps away.
Chapo still has that Scarab's Blessing, and he's just waiting for his time to use it. Two Phoenixes already down, though, from Astral Authority. That's going to mean fire waves after fire wave that now Astral will also have to deal with while trying to hold down this right-hand side.
And that one starts because Layers ends up losing that defense on the left-hand side. He gets poked out and forced back to base, and Jumpa's then free to move in and start shredding the left side Phoenix. And Flashpoint recognize a win when they get one. Two Phoenixes down is a really tough call now for Astral trying to defend. But look at this push from Astral. I think Flashpoint are recognizing that they're here. They have a chance to spring the trap, and they already look for Delaney to start things off. Low on the right-hand side is Layers as well, and he has to fall back. Immediate disengage from Astral.
Half-healthed by one unstable Vortex. That is more than enough for me to want to say goodbye in any given situation, Finch. And I can't even be surprised in the slightest that Layers does not feel comfortable sticking around this Fire Giant pit. More likely than not, Flashpoint is going to be able to collect this Pyromancer back to base, come back in time, regain the Fire Giant buff yet again. and of course, look for that final push onto the right-hand Phoenix. Better safe than sorry after all, and not only that, but the pressure is just overwhelming by this stage for Astral.
And it's been slow and steady picks, and you've already talked about it. They do not have an answer to Delny in particular. He's so strong on the front line. You can't poke him out, and you can't afford to just stand still either, or he'll push, he'll do tons of damage on his own right with the Kappas, and pushing you through minions. They don't have an answer to this Kuzenbo, and then when they lose the 1v1 to the left-hand side, they end up losing their Phoenixes as a result.
Crimson just waiting around, biding his time, waiting to see where the team wants to meet up at. No real buffs to be acquired over here unless he's interested in bringing down Astral Authority's very own red buff, but seems like his pure intentions on this Giannis are to just use Giannis to its full effects, get that mobility and keep the fire minions pushed up as far as possible so Astral Authority won't have time to save themselves by moving those waves closer to the T2 range of Flashpoint, because Astral know that if they leave their base for a little bit too long, Flashpoint are either just going to swing right through it with a drop ship from the Giannis ultimate, or they're just going to kill everybody from Astral Authority.
But Astral have got to find a way to make some kind of adjustments here on their Phoenix defenses. So far, what they've tried has not worked, and Flashpoint gearing up for what very well could be their final push. Delny goes in right away, and as does Matt Koiz with a blink. They want Griffin on the backside. They bring him low. Unstable Vortex damage is good onto Wolves, but he's relatively tanky. Chapo is able to pull one back in. Stygian Torment good, but through space and time. Clipped through the fight yet again. Chapo ends up low, and Delny in the back line sets up Matt Koiz to take down Layers.
Jumpo is finally going to end up falling to Griffin. Griffin with a double kill actually onto Delany. The Kuzenbo that's been problematic all game long will finally fall. 70 seconds apiece, by the way, for all three members on both sides that ended up falling. And now Flashpoint, they still have a little bit of the advantage here, though, with every single one of these Phoenixes having been removed.
It's absolutely a thin silver lining for Delny to finally fall, but Astral to lose all three Phoenixes. I mean, it's going to be difficult to come back from 3 Phoenixes down. It's been done so few times in the history of Smite, and a very tall task now for Astral Authority if they want to keep this one alive. But the one thing they can hang their hat on is that Flashpoint haven't really won any convincing fights in a long time at this point. It's been poking out enough members to get the Phoenix. It's been maybe one person that they kill, and that's their window. No one has won a fight in a while in a big convincing swing.
But I'm also not really all that sold by Astral Authority either. I think that Delany has still just been a little bit too much of a problem factor for Astral to have any sort of significant pack of a punch against the backline. The Keegs has been unscathed for the vast majority of this game ever since the start of it, and sure, they were able to find picks against him during the laning phase and in some of the jungle fights, but after that, things just fell short from 20 minutes and under.
Astral have not been able to find a way to make the team fighting part of the game work. I agree with you. The picks were certainly excellent, but that means now where are their adjustments? It seems like they're too reliant for me, Taco, on Wolves and the Stygian Torment engage. Yes, that's able to go in and force some beads and some ultimates, but aside from that, they don't really have another way in.
Well, either way, Astral Authority, they're just going to sit in their base and wait and see what happens next. They've already got both those Phoenixes respawn, and it's not the first time they've been down this rodeo before, so Astral Authority more than happy to just sit in their base and force Flashpoint to come to them.
And Flashpoint certainly are going to come to them. They've got some Fire Maidens on the left-hand side and Fire Giants still remaining on Crimson Koi's and Keeg's main. The left side Phoenix already weakened. All the Phoenixes will be weakened from this point on, as Flashpoint has already broken down all three, and Astral still have quite a bit of work to do on their own pushback. They've gotten no Phoenixes so far. Likely they'll need to either win one decisive deicide fight or several convincing ones.
Matt Koiz is starting to have a couple more difficulties, though, or laying into the late game. There's a reason why they wanted him in the support role. He doesn't really fare too well after that 30-minute mark. He starts to fall off a little bit in terms of his power spike and his pressure points. So right now, Matt Koiz is just another body to absorb blows as often as possible.
And the pressure remains on Crimson, but it's Matt Koiz who blinks in, finds the taunt, and Crimson flattens Griffin, slays through space and time, deletes him. Double now for the mid laner for Flashpoint. He finds Layers as well. Mid Phoenix comes down, and Taco, that should do it. Flashpoint now with a chance to come barreling into the Titan room. Wolves is trying to force back jump, a nice stun lands, but the Titan already at half HP. Unstable Vortex removes Baronic. He has to fall back as well, and Flashpoint want to close this one out.
But Delany just going to make Baronic kill kill himself on him, and now Kingsman's gonna also bring down Chapo in the process. Titan will end up falling. Fitch, this is practically a best of 3 now.
It absolutely is a near 15-minute battle between these two teams, and Flashpoint able to get it done after the huge punch that was thrown by Astral in game 1. Somehow, this Flashpoint team managed to bounce back.
Every single time it looked like Astral Authority would finally have an opening into that backline, there was just Crimson there to answer it with those through space and times. That Giannis gameplay was just phenomenal.
I just think it was more of a total thing from Astral. They just didn't seem on the same page in the late game.
That communication is very important, and being able to synergize there. Who is the shot caller there on Astral Authority?
It's Chapo, 100% Chapo. Chapo calls everything, and everyone else just listens.
But he just joined in the fall split, so how much synergy can you really have with only a few months?
He has a lot of experience playing in the console scene. He's been the shot caller before out of the jungle role. So when you're playing support, you're still a frontline engager, right? So it's very similar despite switching roles, and that's why he was playing the Naja in game number 1. But game number 2, he switched his style by playing a more passive Khepri. I think he needs to go back to something a little more aggressive.
Game number 3, it looks like they're sticking with the bans that we've seen so far for games 1 and 2, which is really surprising seeing how important Giannis has been. And now Kuzenbo in response.
That's going to allow Baronic the freedom to go any late game mage he wants, not having to worry about all that reflect damage.
I just think the Janus and the Kuzenbo just did so much last game that it basically guaranteed FP that win late game. A late game Kuzenbo is not going to die, and if he does die, he's taking someone with him, and then Janus is allowed to one-shot any squishy at any point in the game, any point in the late game.
I love the Erlang Shen pick. I'm expecting this to actually go to Chapo, unless there's going to be another Naja pick for him, because the way he was piloting the Naja in game number 1, it was pure aggression. It allowed Griffin to invade multiple times, and that's what Astral needs to shut down Flashpoint.
But does Erlang offer that as a support player the same way that Naja does?
In a different manner. It's just more about control. It doesn't have as much burst damage with the ring bounces in the early game for the 2v2, but it's going to be more setup for Griffin to follow suit.
Yeah, a lot more frontline, a lot more setup. It makes it easy for Griffin or whoever they pick for their mid. It makes it a lot easier for them to play the game. And he's just going to frontline, get a bunch of people to go onto him, and then they'll win the fight off of that.
Waiting for 2 more picks from Flashpoint Wolves. Taking their time here. Don't blame them, because like I said, they definitely won, and they were winning from minute 30 on, but it wasn't a very confident win.
I agree. This has to be a jungle pick for Jumpa. The Daji's open, the Pele is available if they really want it. I like the fact that they're going for the Giannis yet again. It's been a staple pick for both of these teams.
Oh, sticking with AMC, they seem to enjoy that, or actually, yeah, on Kingsmade, they're gonna stick with that. How exactly did AMC play in the last game?
I don't think AMC is that good of a pick, and I don't understand the priority on it. They maybe just don't want to show jungle and solo picks, so they just pick the AMC, which is most likely what it is.
I think that's what it is, mostly, because Amuzin Cobb is more of a boxing god, 1v1, so, and currently, Astral doesn't have a god revealed in that Hunter role, so the world is going to be the oyster for Griffin as to what he wants to pick, but Kumbhakarna is going to give a lot of safety, I think, now towards the AMC.
And he can just pick that Jingwei again and just dodge the lane and play for the late game like he did last time. Griffith's played Jingwei every game.
Just want to beat them.
I would have liked a Jingwei there. He's played it every game so far, and he's played it very, very well. The Discordia pick on Baronic to give the early power to Erlang, so maybe fully dual lane
That
again.
makes sense, but honestly, I guess they don't care about the Jingwei because they know it's going to get banned away at this point. But I don't know if Flashpoint would have necessarily banned the Discordia, so that could have been optimized a little bit better.
But why ban Jingwei for the late game when Flashpoints won the late game last time?
Well, they won the late game last time because of the aggression, I think, that the Giannis allowed, but it was also the Erlang Shen support that enabled Matt Koiz to go into the backline multiple times. This time he's playing Kumbhakarna, which has some aggression in his own right, but it's just a different manner. It's more magical damage instead of physical.
With Pele ban coming out from Astral Authority, and 2 bans now going to be on the way for Flashpoint Wolves. No Jingwei, Ao Kwang, but
Jungle bans is a staple at this point. Neither team has a dedicated jungler, and it's going to go deep into the god pools now for both of these junglers.
Jingwei being banned out for Flashpoints like you guys predicted, and Daji being banned out on the side of Astral Authority. Looks like they're far afraid of the jungler, but now they still left a few jungles open that are viable.
There's Nemesis was picked last time around here by Jumpa. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for it again.
I do like Astral's draft so far because there is a lot of jungle bans, and they can just throw that Erlang into the jungle if they want. Jumpo will have to go a little bit deeper into the God pool. Maybe he plays the Nemesis again, or he could look at the Thor or the Rat for some early game aggression. But I wouldn't be worried about Jumpo. He's got a really deep God pool in the jungle.
Same thing goes for Layers. He played the Susanoo last game after the secondary ban phase, but this time saving the jungle pick potentially for the last pick as Rom gets selected. It's good for cleanup, and there's a lot of safety. Last game, Griffin was playing the Jing Wei, getting constantly clipped by the ultimate from Giannis, forced him back to base. But if you're going to get clipped as a Rom player, at least you can still use your Astral ultimate to make an impact.
The Xing Chen, this is the first time we're seeing Xing Chen in this tournament.
It's a great pick, and I'm surprised because I know Divios out of Splice loves that pick in the solo lane. It's great for the late game and shutting down any Hunter's damage. The Furious Roar will just mitigate it all.
Thor rounding it out here. How do you like in this Flashpoints comp?
I really like the Flashpoint comps. It's got a lot of global, a lot of safety out of everyone except the AMC, but he's got a lot of peel with the Kumba. They set up well in the early game with the Thor AMC Kumba, and then they also have a good late game with that Janus.
Outside of a Moose and Cobb, I'm actually in love with Flashpoint's composition, and you gotta fight fire with fire. Thor on the left, Ratatasker on the right.
That global pressure just provides so much in the early, mid, late game. You really need to have it, especially when the rest of your team doesn't have it on Astral Authority side. And Flashpoint, essentially everyone has it because Giannis gives that global presence to everyone.
And a nice idea to pick up the Thor. There's not an easy way to really disrupt that Berserker Barrage from Astral Authority. You're knock-up immune, so Kuzenbo can't really sumo slam you out of it. Erlang Shen's not going to be able to turtle form you out of it. He's going to need to use that 9 turns Blessing ultimate.
So game 1, early aggression from Astral Authority. It was a knockout game. Game 2, though, very long, more towards the late game. What is game 3 looking like?
It's probably going to be early aggression. I think it's Erlang support, Rat jungle, Kuzenbo solo lane for Astral, and I think Chapo is going to be looking for some sort of early kills, already discussing what he wants to do.
Ooh, but with the passion, though, that right there, you don't want to get tilted. And I mean, obviously coming off of a loss there, you're going to be a little bit more emotional.
I don't think he's tilted. This is just the way he normally talks day in, day out.
Just very passionate.
Yes, he's a very passionate person.
I want to see Astral fight early and fight often on the solo side of the map. Rat and whoever they bring into the solo lane is going to be a lot better fight than the Thor and Xing Chen on the opposite side. So they should bully out and play for those blue buffs.
Real quick, one answers. Who's winning it?
Astral.
Astral.
All right, casters, let's head on over to you for game number 3.
Now it's time for game number 3. We've essentially moved into a best of 3 between Astral and Flashpoint, NA versus NA here in your Console Wars World Championship Finals. Someone's about to get the first advantage here in this big set, and which team will it be as they have an early grouping here in the jungle, and already someone locked down. Looks like it's Matt Koiz. He is the Kumbhakarn, so the passive's there, but the auto attacks weaving through. Wolves finds first blood, and the immediate follow-up from Griffin. Baronic takes down Jumpa. What a start from Astral.
What is even happening right now? It's not even the end. Wolves still in a little bit of danger here. Keeks forced to use the purification beads, but now Chapo and Griffin just a little bit too close for comfort. They don't want to push in any further.
That's a pretty crazy way for things to start. Crimson cannot stop the back there, but 3 kills before the game even truly begins. Minions haven't even really spawned yet at this point. That's crazy. A start here for Astral. I mean, just look at this. Still at 7,500 for Flashpoint, already at 85, about 1,000 gold. Free start for Astral out in front.
The thing is, you have to be expecting it by now if you're Flashpoint. This is the 3rd game in a row now that Astral Authority has 5-man into the duo side of the jungle. All they have been doing this entire set is looking for that duo camp focus, and yet Flashpoint just keep feeding into it.
Well, I absolutely have to go back and take a look at that one more time and how they got all 3 of those early kills. Again, thanks to Respawn for setting up the first blood replay for us. But what a start to this, and Wolves right in the thick of it. It's Koiz that drops first, and the passive keeps him alive.
It's not even so much that Astral Authority are overwhelming Flashpoint here either. It's just they're simply body blocking every single possible escape route, and it's not over just yet. Chapo still looking for the body blocks on the Koiz. Koiz doesn't have that passive any longer, and Chapo gonna end up bringing him down yet again.
Shades of game 1 here, Taco. Game 1 was what, like 20-something minutes? It was a stomp in Astral's favor. Game 2, a 50-minute slugfest for Flashpoint. And now here's Astral again, landing the root over the wall. Keegs in a heap of trouble, but the shot's not landing from Griffin. Somehow Keegs jukes for his life and sends them both back. Astral, though, are banging on the door.
Keegs has already had to watch his duo lane partner die 2 times in a row now. He cannot cannot afford to have any more losses over here in this dual lane. Jumpa already knows he's got to alleviate pressure somehow.
Oh, this is huge.
Hammer straight into the lane, but the Berserker's Barrage,
Oh,
he's
no.
spinning to winning, but it's not a win.
Jumpa trying to come over to alleviate pressure, might gift away a kill, a good body block there. I don't know if it was intentional, but that does keep him alive from Keegs. And of course now Layers has joined the fray, stun off the mark, so they won't find the kill on the Kois.
This is absolute madness right now in this
Chaos.
dual lane. Half of this team isn't even level 2 yet. Flashpoint's dual lane still struggling to get past level 1. They might finally get a chance to hit it off the wave. I don't even know how many creeps they've actually had a chance to pick up.
And now there's a little bit of trouble for Delny as well over on the solo lane side, as Wolves is the one on the Kuzenbo this time, bullying the Xing Chen back inside the tier 2 tower radius. But across the map, from in every area, there's nothing but pressure from Astral Authority so far. And this is something Ratatosker can do for you, but usually it starts at level 5. This time they just kind of all grouped up and started fighting.
At least it's a distraction from somewhere. It had to take place, but it's still in Astral Authority's favor for the most part, but anything that keeps Astro from looking outside of that dual lane is all that Flashpoint are really asking for right now. Go and make a couple of ganks onto Delany. I think that Flashpoint's dual lane would be more than happy to see it happen.
They need something to try and alleviate this pressure on the dual lane side. Chapo falling back. He's got this Erlong Shin in the ROM, and they usually do pretty well at level 1, but not this well, and already they've got a nice level lead over both the support and the Hunter, Keegs and Kois over on the side of Flashpoint. But can they keep this ball rolling? It looks like Delny wants to. He's bullying his way into this blue buff to strip it.
Wolves, this is
giving
where
it
it starts. That is where it all begins, though. That first timer is all that Wolves needs, and he will be there every single time after that. Whether or not Layers is with them, it's irrelevant, because all Wolves wants to do is harass and force Flashpoint to try and respond to solo lane, because he knows if more than one person is there at that blue buff, that means free reign for Astral on the opposite side of the map.
I'm actually surprised at how much Flashpoint gave up that blue buff just now, even with Jumpa there. Perhaps they thought Layers were a little bit closer. He does not have the ultimate yet, so he couldn't have come in from the sky with through the Cosmos. So they end up giving it up, and the blue buff does go the way of Wolves. But it's the multiple invades that really becomes the problem. As long as they're back again next time, it doesn't hurt too bad.
Delany, though, finally ticking into level 5 here. Could help him out a little bit more so. Could go for his own spin to win underneath that blue buff, just in case Wolves tries to steal it away. If he can toss Wolves out of the pit, he might be able to confirm his own buff.
That's what will be critical throughout this game, is we can finally slow things down after that breakneck pace to get things started here at the very beginning of the game, but maybe not. Now it's up in the air. Is Layersing for the knockup. That is going to force out the ultimate from Crimson, who's getting to play the Giannis yet again, so no kill there. A nice win for Astral.
And it kind of works both ways with this Ratatosker, if you ask me, Finch, because Layers, sure, he's not going to be able to confirm the kill onto Crimson, and that's a little bit of a loss there with that through the Cosmos, but forcing out a through space in time, something that can transfer an entire team to one specific area, that's probably a little bit more of a loss for Flashpoint to have to take.
We saw what Crimson was capable of doing in that late game, though, so if he's allowed to make it to that late game point, he'll certainly be potent. So they need to do a little bit more than force out the through space and time. They've got to find some kind of way to get him behind Baronic on this Discordia so they can get ahead. But that is one more good point here. Not only are they battling early, but they have a Discordia. So whoever it is that has this passive at that top damage right now is going to be swinging even harder.
A little bit problematic here now for Chapo, though, as he's going to get locked down in the Berserker's Barrage, but this time it's going to be good to go. Keegsmate finally putting Flashpoint onto the board. 5 minutes in, by the way, with only 5 kills.
A great response from Jumpa, though, to be ready with that Anvil of Dawn, and he might be looking for Griffin as well. He teleports to the hammer to cut the distance, can't quite get in is Matt Kois, and that forces Griffin up into the air. He wants the return kill, but Kumba should go into the passive. How's he gonna shut him down? He rolls somehow right past Jumpa, who can't clean up the kill, and now it's Flashpoint who are running.
Baronic hoping that he can close the gap in time, but that speed buff just a little bit too powerful. Baronic not gonna be able to find anybody else, but he did bail out Griffin successfully, and Griffin getting the Kumba passive out of the way is going to be beneficial in the long run.
But now it's trouble for Crimson, who's been caught out by Wolves. Thanks to that watery grave, a portal just barely enough for him to make it through the wall and get away. Otherwise, he was certainly going to fall to the pressure from Layers and Wolves in the jungle. So great from Crimson to reposition. That's twice now he's been able to hold on to life.
Still, things are not the greatest right now for Flashpoint at the very start of this match. Astral Authority just came through barreling so recklessly at Flashpoint that it's almost impressive. Flashpoint have only suffered 4 deaths so far for it.
Yeah, it's really not as bad as it might end up looking, I would say. I mean, if you take away that early start, it's 1-to-1, essentially, in terms of the kills. Astral do have a lead, but remember, they essentially came in with a 1,000 gold lead because of those first 3 kills. Ever since then, Flashpoint have done a good job slowing down. Jumpa was there for the response on the purple buff as well. This is about as good as it can be after you lose 3 members before minions even spawn.
Jumpa, though, I mean, this Thor pick is not looking accidental to me, Finch, because he has been on point for the most part with a lot of these hammer connection double taps. The walls have been excellently placed, and the Berserker's Barrage, of course, hard to go wrong there when you're just playing spin to win.
That and been a great performance by Jumpa here so far, at least on the very beginnings of the story. He's done what he can to try and make things work out for the rest of the team, though Astral now, the one's clearly in the driver's seat. And what worked out so well for them in game 1, Taco, was Chapo getting off to an absurd lead on an off-roll pick. He was on a Guardian, he was on the Assassin. This time he's on the Warrior, but the same principle applies. He wants to get out in front early.
And he already has. He does have a 1-level lead over Kois, which isn't nearly as drastic as it possibly could have been had they been able to find the numerous kill attempts that they went for against Kois once the laning phase actually began. There was at least 2 or 3 other moments where Kois was brought down to that 10% HP threshold and still managed to wiggle his way out of there.
Griffin has to be careful. Jumpa is lurking in the jungles and waiting for him, and I think that he eventually gives up the ghost and recognizes he's not going to be able to go for the surprise gank, just clears the wave, and then goes on his merry way. Griffin had to be extra careful. He still had a few more seconds where he did not have beads, but now he has that extra safety valve, so he should be okay. But now has to be careful in this mid lane, because Jumpa's here to partner up with the support role, but up into the air goes Layers. They want more of a fight, and they want to come laying down on Keegs. They force out the beads very early on. The pin right there to follow up. Jumpa doesn't lane the stun, and that means Layers can get the kill.
But of course, there's Space in Time is going to bring down Layers in the process anyway. Baronic will answer back by taking out Matt Kois, but still, you can never rest easy with that Giannis on the map. Even from last game, I'm starting to think he just has homing beacons left on these through Space and Times.
It certainly seems that way, but it still ends up being a 2-for-1 in favor of Astral Authority, and they grab the purple buff on the back end. It does hurt to lose your jungler and not be able to keep him farming up efficiently, but he's so far out in front of Jumpa anyway that it's not that bad. That fight still feels good for Astral Authority.
And basically all of the action has just been taking place in the heart of the duo mid lane. Interruption in between the jungle, and I am just at all right now at these two teams because they have just been delivering non-stop action for the most part.
And it's hard to get a beat on the pace of this set, I would say, right? As this could potentially be trouble for Wolves. Nearly everyone here on this side of the map, they get him with the epic uppercut right back into the portal. Unstable Vortex too, but he's still somehow at half HP, and now Layers has come to join the fray, and somehow it's actually Flashpoint who are falling back after everything they commit onto Wolves, and a blue buff over to the Chaos side, okay.
It looked like that Unstable Vortex might have been a little bit too early because the damage was never applied against Wolves. His health bar did not go down outside of the initial portal damage. So a little bit of a close call there for Wolves, because had he actually been slapped by the Unstable Vortex, he would not have been anywhere near healthy enough for a rotation from Astral Authority to deter Flashpoint from committing onto him.
It is worth also considering that he has gone into the Void Stone due to being against the Guardian in this matchup, so he has a little bit of extra defense up against Crimson in particular. Now, as you said, he doesn't even get hit by it, but it's really Jumpa that needs to be doing the bulk of the heavy lifting when they're in those gank attempts. It's just unfortunate that he's a bit behind and has struggled so far throughout this early game and can't quite have the impact that you'd like to from your Thor.
Keegs mate just trying to take it easy over in duo. His tower has already been chipped at pretty heavily, and that's partially just due to the fact that it takes him a little bit longer than Griffin to get back to that lane. He doesn't have a rollout that he can rely on to just make that trip just a little bit easier.
Baronic prioritizing the poke over the clear there in the middle lane, and is able to find some poke onto Matt Kois, just trying to see how much damage he can do. As a bit of trouble potentially for Keegs on the left-hand side. 3 members lurking in his jungle, but they might want the buff more than they actually want the fight. Good thing Jumpa's here. He'll push them back. Has a little bit of help from Matt Kois, but it's up onto the tree from Layers, looking for a target to try and drop down on, and he's not able to get in range from Matt Kois. The epic uppercut is enough for him to get away.
But the connection is going to be good there for the Thor ultimate, and Crimson's going to bring down Griffin in no time at all. Layers looking to answer back, Acorn of Flurries are going to be good enough for now, and the Golden Apple just off the mark.
But the teleport coming through there will be backup as Layers finds a double kill underneath the tier 1 tower. It's Delny now who's joined the fray, and Layers, who might be a little bit too far forward, just gonna spin in place. Beads will get him away somehow from the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, and he'll proc the passive of Matt Koiz. I know he won't get the kill, but next time they should be able to kill him easily.
Player discipline is everything at this level, though. As much as Flashpoint or Astral Authority probably wanted to take down Matt Koiz in that Kumakarna passive, they knew better because Delany would have just been way too annoying on this Xingtian, full health, more than enough mana to buy Koiz a little bit more time, and not only that, but a possible counter rotation from Flashpoint because they would have been respawning out of their base by then.
And let me take a look at these charts as well, Doug. I mean, because Astral Authority have somehow managed to turn this early advantage into a pretty good lead. They're out about 4,000 experience, or rather 6,000 experience, 4,000 gold, 4,500. That's a pretty significant mark for 12 minutes in. So even though Flashpoint has certainly looked like they've been able to respond to this aggression, it's these repeated buff invades that's really starting to hurt.
And it actually just took me a second to realize it, but Layers is a 4-level gap over Jumpa. That is not the type of lead you want to see between two junglers. And it's incredible because Jumpa has been pretty on point with this Thor so far. It doesn't feel like he's been all that far behind, but
he hasn't been farming. He's been coming over to the left side to try and help defend the purple buff, and they're not even defending it successfully. Yes, he's been there to help out in the fights, but he hasn't been able to farm as efficiently, nearly as efficiently as Layers has been up until now, and I think that's really what's setting them back.
Lot of tension already starting to build up, though, in game number 3 between these two teams. Astral Authority looking to seize control of the set yet again. But for right now, they're just going to have to sit and wait to see where Flashpoint chooses to respond next. Good ward vision on the Gold Fury for right now, so Astral know that they can't make a play for gold without Flashpoint answering back.
They're considering, at the very least, looking at it, but this might be more of a bait than anything else, as Jumpa lands some good poke onto his opposition Layers in the jungle, but still Astral not truly considering going for the Gold Fury. I think they're trying to see if they can bait in Flashpoint, but so far Flashpoint has been patient as Wolves continues to be annoying and strips away the speed buff. 15, by the way.
15. That is not the sight you want to see coming from behind your T1 tower. It's no wonder that Jumpa and Crimson hardly even flinched. There's no reason for them to try and find any sort of commitment against Wolves, and Matt Koiz, level 8, by the way. All he can really do is mez this Kuzenbo.
He's done about all he can contribute here in this fight, and now Gold Fury being considered by Astral Authority, but they have to drop it. They want this fight instead. Matt Koiz, though, or rather, Delny is able to jump away on that Xingtian. That will be more than enough for him to reposition, and Astral fall back to the Gold Fury one more time.
Wolves gonna toss out his Nene Kappa just to help out a little bit more so on that Gold Fury. He's still just playing heavy zone duty, and look at how far back Crimson is right now. So scared of Layers because he knows any second now this through the Cosmos could be committed onto him instead.
Beads have been forced out by Keegsmate, and he's going to be soloed by a level 15 Kozenbo. No way for him to fight back into that. Chapo lands the taunt. The apple comes through as well, and Koiz in some trouble. Delny falls to the pressure from Griffin, and Jumpa lands on top of nobody on the back end of the fight. Really reeling now from Flashpoint as Astral go back to the Gold Fury one more time.
Wolves hasn't even tossed out the Nene Kappa, by the way. He's just coming into the tower to threaten Koiz and make him think about stopping his own back instead. Astral Authority are going to be able to confirm this Gold Fury, no problem whatsoever. Those 2 picks, a little bit too much for Flashpoint to want to handle the rest of Astral with. But of course, you just have to give such huge shout-outs to Wolves with that Kuzenbo gameplay. He knew that the AMC would not stand a chance.
He's 4 levels out in front of Keegsmate. There's just no way for him to win that fight. This lonely Amuzen Cobb up against the Kuzenbo, whose matchup is already pretty good into the Amuzen Cobb anyway. The experience gap is too large across the board, except for the mid lane, where Crimson somehow actually out farming Baronic. A good job from him to at least be able to try and find some farm somewhere, but everyone else is looking up at their opponent right now.
That was also a really sick Astral Barrage from Griffin Slays. I know we didn't give our man's credit, but that man actually hit 2 out of the 3, but the 2 most important shots, second and third. That was the whole reason why Delany was brought down to begin with.
And still more pressure from Wolves onto the tier 1 tower, this time in the solo lane as he tries to see if he can force back. Actually gets pulled back in by the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, and not a ton of mana available to the solo laner for Astral Authority, so he drops the Thorns to try and find his way out. There's no one coming, so as long as he can run, he should be okay, and the rest of the team is going to try and respond by going aggressive onto Matt Koiz. The epic uppercut well timed, and he's able to make it out.
Wolves still just wasting Delaney's time as much as he can, but he might actually end up falling in the process. These jukes might have been good enough. Hit him with the backstep, and Wolves just got enough mana for the super slam. He is out of there.
That's gotta hurt if you're Delny here on the main stage, and through space and time wasted, unable to find Wolves for that elimination kill. I like the idea to try and grab it, but that's a big deal. Wolves was under the tier 1 tower with essentially no mana at one point, and still managed just to waddle his way out of there.
And now he's just going to be able to teleport back in as though nothing ever happened. And just look at the health of Delaney's tower. Sooner enough, this Team 1 is not going to be there for much longer. I think all Wolves really has to do is just take a single wave, a couple of auto attacks. And, I mean, he won't even have to. Layer's just going to tank it up himself and bring down the Team 1 tower. And now Wolves is free to rotate as much as his heart desires.
And that is a scary proposition if you're an Astral Authority, or rather if you're a Flashpoint fan, having to deal with this Kuzubo even more. And there he is right away, rotating into the middle lane and forcing Matt Koi's back. Level 10 still for this Kumbhakarna. Not too far behind where Chapo is, so you don't have to worry too much about his fate, but doesn't worry too much more about Wolves either as he walks away.
Wolves, though, just waiting for his chance to strike, and it seems like he's going to be able to find Jumpa, just hoping to bring down the Thor as much as possible. Half-healthed already. Jumpa barely managing to get away, but the same can't be set for Matt Koi's.
Who's stuck a little bit back here. He's got the apple on top of him as well. It's not enough for the stun, but the taunt is going to be good enough from Chapo, but he can't finish the kill off. Maybe Layers can with the knockup. Procs the passive through space and time. It's good for damage. He trusts his team, but no one's putting any auto attacks onto the Kumbha.
Chapo trying to do what he can to body block, but it's not going to be good enough. Griffin, though, with the Astral Barrage. Yet again, this Giannis is not safe to hide any longer, not as long as this Rom's on the map.
And Wolves able to tank up so much damage from that tier 2 tower to give them time to clean up the kill. The rest of Flashpoint do want to try and surge for and at least make them pay for the over-aggression. The first one in is going to be Delny. He is able to find the lockdown. It's a good wall from Jumpa, but Layers comes right back in and sends everyone running on the back end. Even finds a kill, takes down Jumpa.
One more time for Layers. He is on a killing spree right now, and he's not looking to slow down anytime soon. Wolves still looking to play defense. He is zone duty right now, and that is all the time in the world for Astral Authority to seize that T1 tower, to keep pushing down into the Pyromancer area. But I think this is where the tear finally comes to a little bit of a halt, and Flashpoint can at last be relieved knowing that the worst of it is over for now.
Level 17, by the way, is this Kuzenbo for Wolves. He's so far out in front all game long, and it really does feel like this comes back to that 3-man kill they were able to find at the start of this game. It was such an advantage for Wolves. It was such an advantage for them in the duo lane. Flashpoint never had any chance to recover, and now they're staring down about a 7,000 gold deficit. The experience is out of reach for them as well. They've been able to make some small fights back in, but this has looked all Astral, very similar to game 1.
Oracle Vision will be established for Flashpoint, so that is one positive, but the Gold Fury is yet to respawn, and Astral Authority, they're the ones with a hard timer of it. They know exactly when that Gold Fury is going to arrive, so even though they don't have the guaranteed vision already in place, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. I highly doubt that Flashpoint is going to try to make a play for this gold anytime soon.
Instead, they'll just fall back, but there is a bit of a grouping from Astral Authority on the left-hand side of the map. The Flashpoint need to make sure they're being cautious. In fact, Astral could just look to try and bully down this tier 1 and open up the map a little bit more and leave less safe options for Keegsmate on the duo side. In fact, they will. Tier 1 tower down, and I'm not even sure they're going to stop there, though they do move into the jungle. They will no longer look to push the tower.
Important to note, by the way, Griffin actually opted for an Aussie immediately after the Executioner. And hold that thought, though, Chapo already committing the Erlang ultimate. Seemed like he just wanted to pull the beads from Layers, and he is successful, or excuse me, from Jumpa. But the important part is, without those purification beads, I doubt that Jumpa has any intentions of landing in the center of Astral Authority during these team fights.
And now the Gold Fury being used as bait to try and force Flashpoint to overstep into a fight they do not want to take. Gold Fury being looked at one more time. But on the backside of the fight, they have to be careful. Jumpa is lurking, and it's actually Chapo who does the drive-by. I don't even know if he knew he was there. The pin, immediate follow. Baronic has too much damage, especially when Griffin is there. Jumpa falls early on.
That was only the beginning
Horrific.
as well. Layer's going to commit the Flurry of Acres one more time onto Keegsmate, and Griffin bringing him down yet again. This ROM is on a roll. roll, Baronic Strife, all too perfect of a placement. Matt Coy is going to end up joining the body count, and that's 3 dead for Flashpoint. Astral Authority, that Gold Fury might just be theirs.
Looks like they're considering the tier 2 tower at least first, and they are going to force this one down with no one from Flashpoint around. The big difference this time is that there hasn't been that same consistent setup for Crimson for him to try and find these through space and times. That's what made this Giannis so potent in game 2, and this time he hasn't even had the opportunities. Astral have had their boots on the neck of Flashpoint since before minute 1, before the minions even spawned.
The damage spread in that last engagement is just way too steep right now. Nearly 4,000 more damage coming out of Astral Authority, and that is all their lead coming into play now. 5 levels still in place here for Layers. Through space and time going to be expended just in case, but the Gold Fury not going to be connected with it. And Astral Authority, when it rains, it pours. They are just getting everything on this map right now.
12,000 gold out in front, or very nearly, for Astral Authority. 12,000 experience, certainly. And this is starting to have shades of game 1. It took a little bit longer. Flashpoint were able to hold on for another moment, but this game firmly now in the grasp of Astral Authority. And I would not be surprised if we see them come over towards this Fire Giant around the 22-minute mark. I mean, just look how far out in front they are in terms of items. I mean, nearly full build here for Layers at this point. He's working on that 5th item slot when Jumpa only has 3. I mean, there's just no way to fight back into a deficit like that.
If I have to be honest though, Finch, despite Wolves having only been a participant of 8 of these 15 kills, it honestly seems like this Kuzenbo has been the main problem factor here for Flashpoint in terms of why they haven't been able to appropriately recover just yet. And speaking of recovery, Matt Coy's, I don't even think he'll have a chance to hit level 12 yet again. He's going to be forced all the way back into his T2 tower, managed to survive the Scordia Golden Apple, but it's this pressure.
Crimson now is forced to use the beads as Champa goes aggressive. A knockup is there. The immediate pin for follow-up. Stinger off the mark from Keeg's mate. It's Crimson who has to portal away from the Watery Grave. I mean, the wall does cut off Wolves, but just how much work can they do to this Kuzenbo? And Astral, after getting out a lot of relics, are able to fall right back to the Fire Giant.
But that's the thing, Wolves, yet again, he's just there to spam in the face of Crimson and prevent him from being able to do the same old Giannis stuff we saw from him last game.
They're only half HP, courtesy of Baronic teaming up with Layers. And Fire Giant has indeed been started. It's now down to about half HP. Matt Poison, Crimson, the only ones around, and Layers goes up into the air. They don't want the FG, they want the fight instead. Knockup comes through into Crimson through space and time for the CC immunity, but the shot's coming out from Griffin, only 1 hit. Instead, they'll turn their attention back towards Chapo. The apple comes through, but it won't be enough to kill.
Jumpa, though, could possibly be getting cut off here by
Delny.
Wolves, and Baroni's going to be able to find Delaney in the process. Just too much disturbance happening in the front, happening in the back. The front line doesn't know which way to turn.
And Astral Authority will fall back one more time to the Fire Giant. Last time they used his bait to look for the fight, and that net them Delny. This time, though, I think they are very much more interested in the actual objective. The first Fire Giant of the game will be burned down for Astral Authority on all 5 members, as if their tremendous gold lead was not enough. They now have the buff itself and 2 more tier 2 towers to go take down a very strong game 3 bounce back.
And this is feeling a little bit of deja vu right now for me, Finch, because game 1 looked almost exactly like this. Timer's a little bit off in comparison, but still, it's the pressure and the leads that were there. And one more time, Astral Authority are just knocking on the doorstep right now, Flashpoint. And Flashpoint's probably trying to act like nobody's home, but Astral just keep kicking in the door.
I don't know if they're gonna fall for that one. That no one's home. I think Astral are gonna come through either way. And there's not gonna be much that Flashpoint can try and do. Chapo backing in the face of his opposition, truly letting them know who's the one that's in control here in this match. And I think that you're right, a lot of this does come down to the pressure play from Wolves. And I gotta wonder if they want to put Chapo on a pick that can run the dual lane in game 4 as well, if they are indeed able to close out this game 3, because that was the difference. Chapo was on that Kepri in game 2 and couldn't play aggressively like he did in game 1 and like what's working here in game 3.
Layers as well, just splitting the map even more so because he knows that Flashpoint are just simply too far behind to handle it. Astral Authority gonna get the T2 in mid lane. Astral Authority about to get the T2 in right lane. And not only that, but they're looking for the collapse in the mid instead because they know that Chapo's got the blink in.
Chapo is okay. Through space and time has been used early, and Griffin is a bit low, but he'll be able to sustain if he can find himself some camps. Wolves, though, of course, is on a mission to try and make Keegs' life miserable. He can't quite get the kill, and now he's stuck underneath the Phoenix. Though even with everyone dumping everything they have, he's still alive. Thorns is reflecting the damage, and Wolves can brush all of it off, and now Layers can come in, knowing that everything's already been expended. Jumpa comes crashing back to Earth as well, but finds nothing, and somehow Astral's still standing.
But that brawl probably a little bit more in Flashpoint's favor because Astral did waste at least 40 seconds there just to make sure that Wolves didn't die. So mid Phoenix not threatened, T2 tower just now gonna fall in that right-hand side. And now there's about 1 minute and 40 seconds left for Astral to work with on this Fire Giant buff for the Phoenix Sieges.
And that's where this will come to next. How will Astral try and break open the base of Flashpoint? Again, we're at DreamHack Atlanta in the Console World Finals. This is the game 3 and could potentially put either one of these teams on the tournament point. A chance for Astral to grab that here now as they barrel into the Phoenix. It's already at half HP, and Wolves, of course, in the backline making life hard for the carries for Flashpoint. Phoenix now down, and Astral want to surge even further forward.
Delaney looks like he's going to be the first to fall here from Flashpoint, and that's a pretty significant blow. Wolves all the while, 3 members on top of him. Keegsmate doesn't have any relics though, and he can't A because the Astral Barrage shot.
The snipes come out from Griffin yet again. The scope able to hone in, and he's able to find the kill on the Keegs. Now they want the mid lane Phoenix, and it's going to be difficult for Flashpoint with only 3 members alive to try and find the defense. Layers goes up into the air. Layers goes in the back line. Can't quite find Crimson, but Crimson, whoa, from way downtown, finds the shot on the Chapo. It's just not enough though. The mid Phoenix has also fallen. Astral, 4 members strong, can look for the retreat.
Right between the eyes there, dead center for Chapo. He's gonna end up having to wait 40 seconds or so before he can rejoin the fight. But Chapo for 2 Phoenixes and a couple of picks, I think that Astral aren't really too upset about that one.
Yeah, and that's push-up time for Chapo, right? He can, he can work out in the meantime.
That's why he wore the sleeveless jersey, so he could hit the sets in between the sets.
That's right. If he ends up having to wait out for 30, he'll make use of that time either way. But a big fight for Astral over on the right side Phoenix, on the mid side Phoenix as well. They'll even fall back and grab the Gold Fury. Flashpoint, they still do have a pulse, but it's very weak here at this point. Really, if it wasn't for Crimson, then they would have gotten nothing out of the back end of that. Just a great individual play to be able to find that shot, but the base now very wide open for the Chaos side.
I'm just disgusted watching Wolves right now, doing these Kuzumbo things to Keegsmate that poor Keegs, he does not deserve this.
No.
He doesn't deserve this, man. The spam taunts and laughs, they couldn't have been that bad for Astral to want to do this to Keegs.
Oh, and this is what the big difference maker was, because as good as the shots from Crimson were and the synergy between the Giannis and Matt Koiz on the Erlong Shen, it really felt like the big difference maker was Delny playing that Kuzumbo in game number 2. He was such a big problem for the backline of Astral Authority. They couldn't put in enough damage, and now it's the same thing for Wolves. Mind you, he's had a tremendous experience in Gold Lead all game long to help him, but they have had no way to slow him down, even locked down underneath the Phoenix.
It's just so many disturbances. Even if Flashpoint wanted to commit everything onto the Kuzumbo, we already saw what happened the first time they tried to do it. He was in the mid-Phoenix even. They had a 6-man helping, and it still wasn't enough.
They locked him down there, had to commit multiple ultimates and could not get the kill, and now Astral will be able to grab the Fire Giant for themselves. Rightly so, Flashpoint not even going to try and contest this one. Instead, they'll take their chances defending on the Phoenixes, depending on when Astral wants to push in. They'll do it on the left side, or perhaps on one of the weakened ones if Astral want to take their time. But another dominant performance from Astral Authority here in Game 3. They still have to close things out. This is not a win in their column just yet, but it would certainly take some mistakes from the Astral boys at this point for Flashpoint to get back in.
Shoutouts to American Sniper Griffin Slays, by the way, because he's gotten at least 3 or 4 of his kills off his Astral Barrage cleanups alone. And the fact that he can be that precise on the controller with the ROM, that's good stuff.
It's not easy by any means, and Griffin will certainly let you hear it when he's able to find those nice shots like he has done this game. And it looks like at least at the beginning, left side Phoenix will be the call. They've sent Layers over here to this side, Wolves as well, to try and push up these waves. It's the only Phoenix still standing, so why not burn this one down as well? And Flashpoint don't have a ton more time to get in position, though. As you can see, they don't actually have Chapo here just yet, or Baronic, so they're probably not looking to push in too hard just yet.
Everybody from Astral Authority, though, grouping up on this left-hand side. It's the only Phoenix yet to fall still here for Flashpoint, and with Min and Right very close to respawning. Flashpoint want to try and play defense on the left-hand side, but they've got to keep in mind that the fire waves are going to outnumber the regular minions that they have going up. there was a little bit of pushback from Jumpa, but that's still not enough.
Chapo went straight for Crimson, forced him to portal away. Up into the air goes Layers. He's on top of the tree and looking for a target. The Phoenix on the right side is back up, but Fire Minions will be there shortly. Left side Phoenix, though, has already been shredded. Flashpoint had no way to defend it, and they gotta get in position to at least keep the right side Phoenix up, because now Fire Minions are starting to pour in.
The archers are already beginning, but I think that right side Phoenix just got enough health in the nick of time that it will be able to defend the initial fire wave that came in. But now with Astral coming into the base, there's no one left to play defense on that right side Phoenix, and it will end up falling to the Winions.
And Layers is right there to take the mid Phoenix as soon as it comes back up. Now Fire Minions should be pouring in from every conceivable direction if you're on the side of Flashpoint. A difficult defense indeed to try and slow down Astral's push. But for now, Astral positioning like they're not ready just yet to jump back in. They want to try and find one more opportunity. They don't have Layers' ult, remember.
Blink in from Chapo is good, grabs two, gets the beads out of Kingsman right away. Knock up onto Crimson is even better, and the portal straight down, but Sumo Slam will be avoided thanks to a nice...
Wasted time coming through from Crimson yet again. Baronic removed Control Alt Delete, takes him out of the game. The pin is gonna land on the Mount Koi's, and Jumpa has to go up into the air, but they have no more damage for the Kumbhakarn. In fact, Jumpa wants to reinitiate back in, but Koi's still isolated a little bit too long, and he will indeed fall down to the passive, and they'll fall to the hands of Griffin Slays. They don't need Baronic, they don't need the mid lane mage, they don't need the Discordia, they can keep surging right on forward. Not ready for the Titan room just yet.
One down, only 4 to go, but Astral Authority don't seem all that interested in the rest of Flashpoint as much as they do in this Titan itself. They want to bring this series up to a 2-1 advantage, and I think that they've got everything in play to make it happen.
It's gonna be Wolves in first, because why not? They've already been able to bring Keegsmate down below half health, but he drops the Stinger right back in on a Choppa, but it's the Titan that's the focus. Crimson finds Layers, but it don't matter. Game number 3 goes the way of Astral Authority, and they're on tournament point and a chance to be your world champs.
Chapo, the first one up for this team. He is the hype man of this squad. He is a very vocal player. Anybody that knows his comms knows how much he likes to spam and call everything out. So Astral Authority, I think, using that to their advantage, and this is where things get tough here for Flashpoint.
They now have to win two in a row. Their backs a bit up against the wall here in this situation, as they have to try and find a way to not even lose one more game to Astral. And every game Astral has won has looked dominant from minute 1. The only time Flashpoint got a win was a grueling 50-minute game. Are they going to be able to replicate that same thing in game 4 or potentially into a game 5? They could even make it, and not if they let Chapo get this much pressure.
I think it comes down to the Kuzenbo.
That's been big too.
I was sold on Crimson having a phenomenal Giannis gameplay in game 2 to match that of what we saw from Baronic in 1, but that was just too much from Wolves. He was level 15 and just bullying everybody.
Well, game 3 now in the books, and on our way into a game 4. Astral Authority with a chance to win.
I'm expecting yet again another Erlong Shen potentially to switch it up, because that was a lot of pressure coming from Chapo, and Matt Koi's had a good game on it in game number 2, and I like the fact that he switched from the Geb to the Erlong Shen between games 1 and 2. Now going into game 4, Matt Koi's needs to play something aggressive.
Well, let's see if he is, in fact, going to be picking something aggressive, because we are ready for game number 4. Picks and bans, everyone, and we still see the same bans. Why no Giannis? Well, I guess because Giannis didn't win the game.
Not this time, Kelly, but still had a great impact. It was so much damage coming from Crimson, over 25,000 player damage. He goes 5-1. Like, he was making a lot of plays, but the problem was the rest of his teammates couldn't really dive the backline.
A lot of the plays that I saw were sniped from far away that really couldn't lead into anything else, though.
Yeah, it was because of the early deficit. At that point, Astral was controlling the game objectively with all their Gold Furies.
And it looks like Flashpoint Wolves is going with the first pick of the game. And they go with the Kuzenbo.
Best of 5s always swap out here. Kuzenbo has been obnoxious, I think. The way Wolves was going into the Phoenixes, going unchecked. I don't think he had a single death that last game.
Ooh, Chapo, the passion is coming through right now, but I think this is kind of what they did with game number 3. They're trying to take away what Astral Authority likes, and that doesn't necessarily work out for them.
Yeah, I do think the Kuzenbo was a little bit of a problem last game. You getting a big lead on a god that has so much base damage and it resets his cooldowns when you hit his 2. He's going to get out a lot of damage, and he was able to zone both of the squishies on FP side.
Especially when Keeksmate is playing the Musin comp that has so much damage over time. Every tick, an instance of damage is ticking the spiked shells further and further, resetting those cooldowns faster, allowing Wolves, that last game at least, to go into the Phoenix and then immediately retreat. So that's why Flashpoint are switching it up in game 4.
2 picks on the side of Astral Authority about to come out here. Nothing just yet.
I would expect Erlong Shen is a must.
They
Yeah.
could take away the Janus again from Krim. I don't know if, yeah, right there.
They're hovering over it.
I
Both.
mean, it's not even really taking it away from Krim when Boronic did so well on it in game number 1.
And if Astral is going to play aggressive, which they're known for, the Giannis will enable it.
And there's the Erlang to follow up. Man, these two already. It already looks like we're going to see the same thing from Astral Authority.
Probably, but covering their option. Jumpa likes to dodge G from time to time, and that's a good way to chase the Giannis as well. As long as the portal's not too far away from the wall, that Paolao should still be in range to pull him back in.
And there's the Agni we saw from Crimson yesterday. How are you liking this?
It's good because whenever Astral is going to be aggressive coming at you, you can find multiple bomb stuns, but Astral are anticipating that with the Geb shield, playing a little bit safe.
You're shaking your head, Inbound.
I did not want the Geb. You've won both your games you've won. You put Chop on a high pressure, high kill potential god, and now he's playing a Geb, unless they're going to bring it to Wolves.
Wolves solo lane. That's
think Wolves
probably
will play Geb?
Wolves solo lane, Geb. Keep Erlong Shen here, right on top of Chapo. It worked in game 1 on the Naja, worked in game 3 on the Erlong Shen. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't fix it. And I mean, we've seen Geb in solo lane. Geb can definitely provide some pressure there.
It's about how you rotate to these team fights. The rollout is so fast in terms of getting into the mid lane. It's about getting more control than your opposition and get between the Cataclysm, between the knock-up. You got late game Peel will be the highest level of the game, so you're getting the most benefit from the Geb shields.
Got an Uller Band coming out from Astral, and Flashpoint Wolves responding with the Ao Kuang once again.
They saw Layers play last time. They don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't know how much I like that ban very much. The Ao Kuang isn't going to be the early game that FP wants to avoid. Ao Kuang's going to be there for the late game, and so far it looks like FP is struggling to even get through that early game. The only game they ended up getting to the late game is a comp where Astral drafted for the late game. So maybe picking that, if Astral picks that Ao Kuang, they can play for that late game and then beat him in that 50-minute banger again.
Would you have preferred a Ratatasker ban there? Because we saw how well they did in the last game.
Yeah, he played really well in the Rat. Banning that Rat again would have been a really good idea too.
Well, they still got a ban left, and same thing with Astral Authority, so we might still be seeing that Ratatasker ban coming out, but just a moment to go. Players taking their time here, and don't really blame them. This could potentially be the last game
That's
for
true.
Flashpoint Wolves, and then we got the Jubilanke ban for Astral.
The best of 5 Astral with already 2 games thus far, as Chiron surprisingly getting banned away. This leads me to believe that an Athena might be picked for Flashpoint and not wanting to deal with that cleanse and allow Kuzenbo to go solo lane.
Oh.
I think it's also because of the dodgy. You don't want to give 2 cleanses into the dodgy and make her basically irrelevant whenever she ults.
Rom coming out once again for Astral.
Griff had a really good game on the ROM last time. He hits snipes with a controller somehow.
Is that right? You think
That is
something that's a
incredible.
high execution, very hard skill shot to do wouldn't be possible, or it's still possible, but very difficult to do on console, and he did it without any trouble.
Yeah, it was insane. I
And
don't hit him, he does.
Layers with the Ratatasker the last game, paired up with Griffin on the ROM, made it so difficult for Flashpoint to really escape. And I wouldn't be surprised if we still see yet again another Ratatasker. There's still that jungle pick of question, where is it going to be this Erlong Shen? Is it going to be solo, support, or jungle? Geb can still go in the solo lane for Wolves.
Are we just going to see a Jing Wei again for a safe pick for Flashpoint Wolves? Or are they going to do something a little bit more aggressive, maybe to handle the dual lane a little bit better?
It's hard to really battle. If it's going to be an Erlong Shen support, it's difficult to battle into that. Artio is still available if they wanted to be aggressive, so you could pick Artio Hachiman.
Already got banned by Astro in
Oh.
the first phase, so.
Never mind.
But they definitely should pick something with pressure here, because that is the way that Astro's been playing, is through the dual lane. I think that Naja that Chapo played, I think Koi's could look to play that. The Fender we saw in the PC games could definitely be something looking forward to.
Medusa, though.
I like the Medusa. It gives him that early kill potential, early pressure. The anti-heal is also pretty good into Erlang if he's looking to frontline and get the heal off with his taunt.
the Petrify in the jungle fights is going to be difficult for Astral to like commit all in. If they're going to use that through space and time forward, then expect a random Petrify around a corner.
And Athena would really do a good job here, though, taunting them into that Petrify, into the Agni Bombs. You think we're going to see an Athena here?
I think maybe so. That's why the
Chiron
was banned away. They still have that Kuzenbo potentially go into the solo lane, but there's just a lot of good Guardians out there.
Terra, what does Terra provide that Athena can't?
Well, it's about the global, or sorry, not about the global, but the ultimate rather, that has that damage swing. 5% debuff on their enemy damage, 5% buff on your own damage. The control, like Athena has a taunt, sure, but between a root and a stun, I'm preferring the Terra.
That 5v5 team fight of
overrun our
FPs
enemies.
is scary good.
Yeah.
There is so much damage, so much control, so much like defense from the Terra ult.
Yeah,
It is
sustained.
Very, very good.
And as long as Jump is patient, right? Like allow the Terra, allow the Kuzenbo to go into the backline, and then once the purification beads are done, once the Mad Guy's cloaks are popped, that's when Dodgy's truly gonna thrive.
All right, how do you want Astral Authority, though, to round out their team if they're going to try and take this 3-0?
Gotta task her. Just
want the red again, too.
put it onto layers. Him and Griffin had a good job, basically making it difficult, I think, for Keegsmate and also Crimson to really escape.
That doesn't sound like a rat. That sounds like a dog. That's a Fenrir pick right there.
That is indeed a Fenrir pick. So it's still a question of where this Fenrir, Erlang, and Geb are all going to go. Probably leaning towards Geb's support now with this although
Really?
Fenrir's support.
Fenrir support, Geb solo, Erlang jungle.
Huh.
Layers loves Erlang. I know Choppa likes the pressure, so the Fenrir is good. And then Wolves, I guess, can play anything, so give him Geb.
Well, looking at these two teams, is this something like what we're going to see in games 1 and 3, where it's just the early aggression, so much happening at the start, or is this going to be making it to the late game?
I think Astral are definitely going to group up S5 and try to go for that fight with a Fenrir, with an Erlang. They need to do that, but I don't think Flashpoint are going to fall victim to that for 3 times in a row from games 1 and 3 into game 4. But if it gets to the late game and team fights, I like Flashpoint's draft a little bit more, but Astral are probably not going to allow that to get to the late game. They're going to want to group up early and mid.
Yeah, just don't group. Please don't group. Just play for the late game. Just don't group. That's basically all it is.
I mean, and Flashpoint definitely has great awareness. It's not. It's just that early game. What is it that keeps getting them caught out?
It's about the picks from Astral that enable them, like the Nasha support, the Erlang support, and now it's probably going to be a Fenrir support.
Well, really quick, who's got this?
I like Astral's comp.
I'm giving it to Astral.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be an interesting game for game number 4. Astral Authority versus Flashpoint Wolves starts now.
Game number 4, championship point now for Astral Authority. If they grab the win here in Flashpoint, have got to fight for their lives to get to a game number 5. And in this game, I have questions about where this Geb is going. I don't know that I'm 100% sold that it's going over to the support role. And what do you know, it's not. The Geb for Wolves, and Chapo takes the aggressive Fenrir.
And the reason why this works so well also is because Chapo and Layers, they've been the main ones as the catalyst of pressure for Astral Authority. It's always been those two simultaneously invading the jungle, looking to harass the carries from Flashpoint. And not only that, but with so much focus having already been prioritized towards mid and duo side, Wolves should be free to just AFK farm on this Geb and solo lane.
And a lot of the priority picks from this set are on the side of Astral. They have the Giannis, they have the Erlang Shen. The key difference, though, is that Delny is back on that Kuzenbo that he was able to have such a strong performance on before. Delny, I feel like, has a lot of pressure on him to have a good laning phase and get involved in these team fights as soon as possible and try and be that oppressive Kuzenbo.
Jumpa as well. I mean, at least Flashpoint didn't take the bait this time around. They were expecting that 5-man grouping from Astral Authority, and it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination for Astral to just close this set out. Flashpoint are a team that loves bouncing back, and I think this is their prime time to strike.
And they have a chance to try and bounce back. Look at the idea here from Matt Koiz and Keegs. Instead of trying to fight early on, they fall back directly towards their purple buff and give up on the lane pressure. And it does look like it worked out for them. Matt Koiz has the purple buff around their waist, so they're not going to allow Astral to start off this game by getting a bunch of free farm by stealing away their buffs.
That's the way to do it, though, if you're a Flashpoint, because the last thing you want to see is Chapo and Griffin being allowed to snowball this dual lane one more time. Because if that takes place, the Terra will probably not be able to thrive in that sort of environment.
No, it's not going to be easy at all for Matt Koiz if he ends up falling behind. So They're doing their best trying to defend their bus and try and remain relevant as Layers is rather pushed forward, and Jumpa is able to use the dodgy aggressively to bring him down to half HP, and there is no answer back from Baronic, so a small win, I would say, here in this middle lane in favor of Crimson and Jumpa.
And of course, you can never count anything out when it comes to the mid-jungle synergy between Flashpoint and Astral Authority's mid and jungler. I think that's where a lot of the action has also really been taking place, because Flashpoint, while they've had their moments, I definitely think that Layers and Baronic have been just a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, Layers and Baronic have looked great in their mid-jungle synergy, and that's what you got to worry about if you're on Flashpoint. How do you slow that down? This game, he's on the Yacht. It's going to be that much harder. Layers on the Erlang Shen, which has been dominant so far. It's going to be a difficult task if you're Flashpoint, trying to stop them from having the type of impact they normally have.
Delaney could also encounter some difficulties, though, up against this Geb. Kuzumbo can sometimes be a lane bully in certain matchups, but this one might be a little bit too passive for him to handle. Chapo, all the while, Brutalize gets some good poke here onto Keegsmane, forces out the beats preemptively. Nice recognition from Keeks to expect the Unchained shortly after the Brutalize, but even better from Chapo to force them out to begin with.
That's right, a nice play by him jumping forward and forcing them out, but Keegsmane, as aware as always, is able to stay alive. And this is another one that's important. They need Keegs to be able to stay relevant in this matchup and not fall behind Griffin right away. Last game we saw how impactful those snipes were out from Griffin. They need Keegsmane to be similarly as oppressive on this Medusa.
And of course, Keegs wants to have that sort of impact with the Medusa Petrifies, but that'll be the idea here, is just find those ultimates in the late game. But Chapo might have been up a little bit more than he could chew here. In some danger, Crimson looking for the stun, will connect, forces out the shell, but now Griffin's gonna have to roll away, and Chapo should be out of there also.
It's the shell that really did it. He still had the Brutalize available to jump. He used the Unchained early on to try and defend the actual buff, and that was the secure he wanted to use to make sure they got it, and that meant that he was in a little bit more trouble. But Crimson couldn't get in range for the Flame Wave damage, just the stun, and I think that might have been the very key difference there.
30 stacks already with that Guardian's Blessing and climbing, and the tankiness is only building up. Interesting to note, though, that this is the game where Keegs is opting straight away into that Transcendence start. And with it, he did have a lot of health potions, so probably went for this route, wanting the 3 health pots, so that way he could try and make up for whatever poke damage he took out of Chapo.
And that is a good call from him, because there's been aggression in this duo lane all set long. So getting those potions to try and help him sustain up and make sure he can stay in this set, or rather in the lane, not get forced back and end up falling behind early on, was a good call. Though Transcendence can feel a little bit slow, once he has it online, he'll certainly be swinging. But the fact that he's already made it this far should be a good sign for their chances here in the lane.
Still about 45 more seconds until Keeks has his Purification Beads up and running again. And of course, look who's coming straight out of the jungle. It's Chapo. He's got those rune stacked most likely, and is just trying to see if he can get another jump stun connected.
Can't find Matt Koiz, who does a good job using that monolith to juke around, and you can even hear a little bit of laughing as they know they can't find him. In fact, it's Jumpa who's making the rotation. Remember, he is on the dodge this time, so he'll have the powwow to try and pull them back in, but Griffin and Chapo have fallen back. They must have recognized that there's some extra help coming.
The Dajé pickup is interesting because it feels like more of a direct call out towards Layers on this Erlang, because Layers is the only one on Astral Authority who does not have a CC immune ultimate that's a great taunt, that can be a multi-taunt even, but you don't get any immunity frames during it or anything of that sort. So it'd be very easy for Jumpa to rush up into the powwow and then look to pull Layers out of position early on, which is why we see this Erlang rolling with beads in the first place over the typically picked up Blink.
Gonna need an extra safety factor to try and stay away, so we'll see if he's able to use that to get away from some of this aggression. But this is already good news, I feel like, if you're Flashpoint, that the early game isn't out of control right away as it has been in games 1 and 3, the ones that Astral have won. So far, you've looked good in these long, drawn-out matches. The 50-minute win they got in game 2. Try and get your conditions as close to that and see if you can find one more win there.
Of course, you can never count anything out when it comes to Flashpoint, though. Astral Authority, they have plenty of win conditions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to pan out evenly for them. I like that Crimson switching it up to the Agni, however, because Giannis has a lot of escapability, but that doesn't necessarily mean he has heavy survivability. As we saw last game, Crimson had a lot of issues getting away from those Romp Snipes and everything else that was chasing after him.
Jumpa could be in a bit of trouble, though. He gets taunted back in. He does make it up onto the Palau, and now a chance to turn things back around to Layers, but a big heal coming up from the 9 turns Blessing, and Chapo right there for the follow-up, but inside the Ragnarok, he can't keep up, and just barely Jumpa is able to make it back out.
Actually looked like Chapo might have lost sight of which way Jumpa actually rolled out from the Palau. Had he realized which direction that Jumpa had originally been headed, he might have been able to just kill him with the Ragnarok damage straight up.
Narrowly avoiding the stun was Layers, able to get out through that turtle form and able to make it back towards safety, but very crucial that Jumpa was able to survive there in the jungle. Anything you can do to try and get this team closer to that mid-game stage, get out of this laning phase where Astral has been able to out-rotate you, been able to outplay in the 2v2s and the 1v1s, get to the point where you can have those 5-on-5 fights on even footing has got to be the only thing on Flashpoint's mind right now.
Well, things are definitely even so far between the two teams. Mild goal lead in favor of Astral Authority just from a little bit of more efficient farming out of their team, but Jumpa still not looking to give things up that easily. This Dodge E pickup is fairly risky in the early game, though, because of what we mentioned earlier, with only Layers being the most susceptible member to that Palau ultimate. I think Jumpa will have some issues with his own positioning in this match.
And sometimes we even see the Dodgees like to go for the blink because you can be up on the Palau so long that it gives you that option to blink out once you drop back down if you don't hit anyone with the chains and stay out of combat. So without that option, ironically, there might not be as much safety. Jump will have to be very careful about how he uses those Trickster Spirits and where he lands on the back end of those Palaus to make sure he's not the one that ends up getting punished or caught out by Chapo or Baronic or Griffin.
Keegsbane and Griffin, actually a 2-level disparity between these two hunters already built up. Chapo going in though, Unchained is good on Matt Koiz, but the Unstable Vortex follow-up is not. Now Chapo is vulnerable. If he gets hit by the Palau, he's certainly getting pulled in.
And he certainly has been. That's going to be the first blood for Crimson, thanks to Jumpa pulling him back in with the chains, and Astral Authority on the back foot once again. A good job from Flashpoint starting out strong, but they're not done yet. They want to start something with Layers as well, who's already used the 9 turns Blessing, has a heal coming, and Jumpa will chase with the Trickster Spirit, but can't find anything more.
Astral Authority, we're just expecting that to go a little bit smoother here, but without the Unstable Vortex damage to follow up the Ragnarok, there's just no possible way for Astral to come out on top there, and now Crimson getting even more damage out onto Griffin.
The pin does land, and that's why we see Griffin going up into the air looking for the snipes, but he gives up on it. He just doesn't have enough vision to be able to follow them any further and land the rest of those shots, so he is going to go back to trying to farm up. And finally, a nice, clean fight in the early game for Flashpoint. Like you said, it starts with the goal, with them not being able to complete the damage, but the Gold Fury, what is this Flashpoint? They're not around. This should be free for Astral.
That's why Griffin gave up on that Astral Barrage right away. It seemed like he was giving up because he knew the second shot not connecting meant the third wouldn't be enough to kill them, but Flashpoint had the back, and at 9 minutes, the first Gold Fury is going to go down in favor of Astral Authority.
And that has to be a bit of heartbreak if you're a Flashpoint fan, that they finally show a good fight in the early game and then a bit of a lapse in judgment when everyone backs, and that means the Gold Fury free there for Astral Authority as they recognize no one else was around, so that puts the gold right back in their favor.
Delny and Wolf still doing the same old soul laner thing that you'd expect to see. Time and time again, this matchup, just not a whole lot that can happen between these two. Kuzenbo and Geb, neither side really favored in having any sort of kill potential there. But I think that Chapo has now realized he can't just be reckless with these Unchains. Despite being able to find a good jump stun into the Ragnarok, it's still not the wisest decision to make if he can tell that there's going to be 2 or 3 members close in the vicinity.
Been impressive so far from Astral throughout this set. 2-1 now with a chance to take themselves into the, not just into the finals, but to win the entire tournament right here. But not if Chapo ends up gifting his life away. Jumpa follows him, a good knock-up and taunt coming out from Layers, but the chains are there. Ragnarok gives him the cleanse so he won't get pulled back in, and yet again, Chapo skates by the skin of his teeth.
But that's all that Chapo was waiting for. 2 ults for the price of 3. Make that 4. Well, Delany's doesn't really count, though. He's just clearing the wave with the Watery Grave. But Jumpa, Koiz, and Keeks were all looking to try and bring Chapo down one more time. They're trying to prevent the snowball factor from ever taking place on this Fender support, and that is the right mentality to be in, because every single time that Chapo has gotten ahead of Koiz, we have seen Chapo and Layers run this map.
Chapo yet again able to barely escape by and make it out. But Taco, I'm curious about the impact these soul laners could potentially have in the late game. I know that this Kuzenbo has been the deciding factor, it's felt like in a lot of matches, but Wolves is on this Geb. He's so big when you get to a late game fight and you have those shields, the knockups, and the Cataclysm.
If it was any other Guardian but Geb, hold that thought though, Finch, because I don't think we're going to have a chance to break into it just yet. Delaney actually forced a retreat, successful invade between Wolves and Layers, and getting back to what I was just about to address, it's just that any other Guardian except the Geb, this would be a good matchup for the Kuzenbo. But because it's a Geb, you have all this disturbance that Delaney is going to be able to provide, but it's going to be for not 9 times out of 10, simply because Wolves has those cleanses with the Geb shields. He has so much peel, the Cataclysm even going to be able to put in some solid damage. You've also got that knockup that Geb can utilize to his advantages. It's just so hard, I think, for any single target member or any single target strategy from Flashpoint to really work out.
And that's why I think there's a lot of pressure on Jumpa, right? Because you've got to think that the Palau value is going to drop dramatically once Wolves starts being more involved in these fights. Whoever it is that doesn't have beads or doesn't have an ult, or whoever's the target, they just have to call for that Geb shield from Wolves to give them that cleanse to get them away. And Jumpa so far hasn't been able to find a ton off this Danji. I feel like it's just going to be slowly meaningless the closer we get to Wolves being a big part of these fights.
There does need to be very clear communication, though, on the side of Astral Authority if they truly want this Geb pick to work out, specifically against the Daji, but definitely against Delaney. I don't want to see any Geb shields onto the same targets who also then panic push onto the Purification beats.
Right.
We saw a couple instances of that the other day, I believe, in that Splice set on PC.
There's gonna need to be some trust here between these teams, or like you said, just good communication. And you can trust that with Chapo on the team, they'll certainly be talking about something at the very least Smite related. They just got to make sure that they're able to cleanly get that communicated during a fight as he jumps in, finds the Unchained stun and the Ragnarok follow-up to force out the beats from Crimson, but that might not even be enough. Layers at the taunt afterwards, through space and time, does not land, and Griffin barely gets away from all 3 chains, and now it's Jumpa that could be in trouble. An early beads, but no, they switch their target focus to Keegs. Jumpa still isolated on the back, and the first kill for Astral comes out thanks to Chapo.
Jumpa just had nowhere left to run, not a single teammate in sight that he could possibly try and utilize the Trickster Spirit for an escape, and not only that, but Wolves also blinked right out in front of him, so whichever way he decided to run, Wolves is going to look for the cutoff.
And be there to stop him. Another good fight from Astral Authority, and that wasn't even so much around the cleanse. That was around the 1v1 between Jumpa and Griffin on the backside of the fight, which ends up going relatively even. Somehow Griffin was able to avoid those chains coming down from the Palau. That's what was so key to at least prevent that from being a 1-for-1.
Wolves, one more time though, going to make his way back over to the solo lane, and it's to be expected. He does a couple of early rotations wherever he can, because he knows that Delaney on this Kuzenbo as a Guardian going to take him forever to try and bring down his T1 tower.
Now it should be fine over here. These two are of no true threat to one another, so they'll just trade out a little bit of a few blows. Astral not going to be able to be here for the red buff invade, a strategy they were able to use very well in games 1 and 3, but Flashpoint have done a better job holding on to their jungle. So the lead stays small for Astral. They're not tremendously out in front. A little bit of the Gold Fury, a little bit of being able to strip away a camp or 2 there, but Flashpoint very much still in this.
Wolves still also looking to just take away as much of Jumpa's jungle as possible. He knows that Jumpa's over in that left-hand side because Jumpa was just spotted out by minions, so he's got more than enough time to bring down those back Harpies. Not only that, but he's also forcing Delaney to pull away from his T1 tower. All of that damage that's happened against that solo T1 has been from the creep waves.
Earned it, but Chapo lurking around the jungle. He jumps forward. He doesn't want Koi's. He wants Jumpa, who goes right into the Palau in response. But again, none of the chains can land. Great jukes from Astral all game long, and Jumpa's not been able to hit home on enough of these chains. And so again, Astral able to walk away scot-free.
I'm actually curious to see what Chapo might be leveling. I'm almost wondering if he might be upgrading that Seething Howl to get a little bit more lifesteal, a little bit more pressure poke on this Fenrir. But of course, that's just something we'll have to ask the players later on, because there is a little bit of player preference involved. I know Inbound was actually talking with me about it the other day on this Fenrir. The big thing is to win those boxing trades. And so if you have that upgraded second ability on Fenrir, you can afford to exchange blows and still come out on top.
Bit more of the minutiae of what exactly makes this Fenrir pick work so well. One more thing I was also noticing, Jumpa electing for this Brawler's Beat Stick early on, I got to imagine that's trying to cut out some of this healing from the Erlong Shen. That 9 turns blessing heal on the back end can be so potent for getting him out of those tight spots.
Keegsmate, though, might have been looking towards that Gold Fury, but pressure in the mid lane onto Crimson. No beats so far for Chapo. He does eat a little bit of his dot damage, though, out of that flame path. Pretty dangerous stuff here to mess with Crimson, too, when Chapo's 4 levels underneath him.
But very brave from Crimson to hold on. He didn't feel under any threat to use any of the relics in that situation. So Chapo not quite achieving what they needed from this Finver support early on. But in this slow-paced game, if you remember Game 2, you have to be feeling good about Flashpoint. They're going to have a ton of control in these fights between Koi's, Crimson, and Delny. They're going to have beads, pullers from Jumpa, and Keeks for plenty of damage. Right now, Flashpoint, I think, have got to be feeling good.
Flashpoint are definitely feeling really good right now. This gold lead just keeps building and building, the same for experience, and yet it doesn't seem like much of anything has happened at all. There's only been a couple of bot picks on both sides, and even then, neither side has really felt all that comfortable. It was just that first Gold Fury that I think really broke things open for Astral.
A bit of posturing around the Gold Fury from Astral Authority, but they don't go all in on trying to pull that. They're trying to force Flashpoint into a bad engagement, but they will not bite. A bit surprised by the Geb Shield there from Wolves, expecting some more damage to come through, but nothing there. And that might be an opportunity for Flashpoint to fight for a little while, knowing that key cooldown's down for a few more seconds.
Jumpa and Koi is going to make sure to remove that Sentry Ward from the Gold Fury. Now, Wolves could be in a little bit of danger here, spotting out 3 different members from Flashpoint's more than enough to get him to back off, though. But it's Flashpoint who are actually looking to take initiative on this next Gold Fury.
Well, it's certainly no secret Astral Authority are right here, and they're going to trust Crimson to be the secure if it comes to that, though Baronic will have a bit to say with his own ultimate as they make Keegsmate the target. He has immediately the Petrify, and it's Chapo who ends up low. Keegsmate able to burn him down right up onto the Palau, goes Jumpa to try and pull someone back in, and he is absolutely able to find Wolves. The Geb not able to save himself, and Jumpa finds the kill. 2 quick ones for Flashpoint, and now they can pull the gold.
Too much from the front line without any sort of follow-up, and that means disaster for Astral Authority here, because those 2 picks definitely made it all that much easier for Flashpoint to try and bring down this Gold Fury.
And Gold Fury certainly will be theirs. A well-earned Gold Fury for Flashpoint, as well as they win that fight inside the Gold Fury pit. Astral that time a bit confused about where exactly to go, and as you said, it was the frontliners that get forced too far back in, and they don't have the same good poke that they've had before.
This is even better, though. Layers, there's a reason why that fight seems so one-sided. He wasn't even there. He was pretty much on the opposite side of the map, but that split push could not have been better timed, because despite losing the Gold Fury and that all that map pressure having been normally would have been alleviated from the duo side, Layers brings it right back again by taking down the T2. He brings back the gold lead for Astral Authority as well. And I'd rather have a T2 over a Gold Fury, because having that part of the map wide open means that there's no escape route there.
Especially if it's fights around the Pyromancer or the Fire Giant. You're absolutely right, Taco. That's a huge fight, or rather a huge win that Lair is able to provide for Astral Authority by finding that Tier 2 tower and opening up the path. And remember, Wolves had made that job relatively easy with so much pressure onto the Tier 1 tower early on that was mostly minion-based, and Layers comes in to complete the job. Now Flashpoint have to make sure, even when they think they're winning a fight, that they're not giving up too much on the back end of it going forward.
Matt Koi is going to get spotted out, but it's Veronic who's under fire from Jumpa. Trickster Spirit and the Thousand Bladed Claws are going to do some pretty damage to Veronic. Half health at least, going to send him back to base for now. So Ward Vision will be established in favor of Flashpoint around those aggressive choke points coming into the Fire Giant pit.
But this is something we see all the time in these elimination games, the clinching games, where teams start to slow things down and try and play a little bit more calculated, a little bit more cautious. Up until now, though, the aggression has been entirely Astral Authority. Is that what you want to see more of? Does Astral need to be the one that's trying to force these fights, or are they okay with this slower pace like Flashpoint?
In a sense, Astral kind of have to force the early fights if they want to make this Fenrir pick viable for their team. But Chapo's just kind of struggled with, because of all the area damage that Crimson's able to provide. Not only that, but Keegsmate with the Petrify is so annoying. Jumpa already forced into the Palau ultimate, though. That's a really early burnout of a pretty big team fighting ult.
Trickster Spirit used. Jumpa trying his best to get out of the fight on the back end, though. Delny has a target all his own. The Watery Grave looking for Baronic. He'll have to disengage because everyone from Astral comes back, but that does mean Wolves now left a bit alone on the front line, pushed right back in. Earth and Fury gonna come out from Matt Koiz as well, but it's Baronic with the through space and time that rips right through the fight and puts out a ton of damage. They find their first kill onto the Terra, and they want Delny as well. He does put out the turtle, but the jump over the wall from Chapo finds one more, and 2 kills, but get 2 kills. It's Astral pushing forward.
That 4-man Cataclysm from Wolves, everybody just piling up inside of that left mid Harpy section. All too perfect. 4-man Cataclysm into the through space in time. So much damage right away, and with those 2 picks, Astral Authority, they're not going to be able to push in. Keegsman gets a huge kill onto Griffin.
That's a ton of damage on the backside coming up from Keegs. They blow up Griffin, and now disarray for Astral Authority. Choppa start running away as well. A great defense from FP on the order side as they manage to defend their tier 2 in mid.
Definitely was not expecting Astral Authority to be met with such an abrupt halt, but Keegsmate is just here to deliver. He is not looking to go down in 3-1 fashion against Astral Authority, and I can't blame him. I know how much tension there is between these 2 teams.
Well, look how much power he has in the build. Transcendence is now finished into the Bloodforge right after the boots. That's about as much power as you can get from physical items at this point in the game. So Flashpoint have a ton of damage coming out from their Hunter, from the Medusa and the Hunter role. And I think that's why we saw Griffin evaporate near that tier 2 tower.
Gotta have a little bit more respect for Keys' itemization choices. The second that you see that Bloodforge, you've gotta know a little bit better than to get too close to get bitten, and that's the thing. Keegsmate is someone who knows how to land his skill shots.
He absolutely does. Pyromancer's now the one that's under siege, and the siege is now over. Astral have grabbed the Pyromancer before Flashpoint can even try and mount a defense. The shield is good from coming out from Wolves, and he's able to fall back as well, and that should be all she wrote, though Chapo could be in a little bit of trouble with Koiz, Delny, Crimson, and the whole team right here lurking nearby. They want to bully down the tier 1 tower, and they have the opportunity. Keegs comes in, and Keegs forces it down.
Keegs forces it down, so tower for tower, a little bit of a response, a little bit of a resurrection of Flashpoint, if you ask me, because that left mid Harpy fight looked pretty grim there, and it could have been a little bit of a mental blow yet again, especially since Game 3 was so dominating for Astral Authority. But of course, Flashpoint never wants to be counted out. They are looking to answer back every way possible.
And you said it up here after that Game 3 where it looked a little bit like Flashpoint might have some mental troubles after that loss, though they are trying to pull this Gold Fury, and it's up to Astral to get in and push them off, and it's just enough from Griffin and Baronic showing up. Flashpoint don't actually want the fight. They wanted to steal, and they'll find nothing there. But the mental state of Flashpoint's got to be the most important thing here. Are they still communicating effectively? Are they still 100% in as Gold Fury dropped from Astral?
Wolves doesn't have his shield, and he took a pretty chunk of his health out of those Viper shots from Keegs. Well placed onto the right targets. The second that Wolves shields any single member of Astral Authority, whether it's himself, Layers, Baronic, whoever, doesn't matter. Flashpoint have to just hard commit to anybody else who doesn't have it.
He has to be so patient with the shields as Chapo goes aggressive. They want Keegs, and they stick right to him. The Petrify does find one stun, but it does not save his life. Through space and time comes through too, but doesn't find much. And Jumpa now the center of attention up on the Palau. He's gonna try and run, but Griffin rolls right in to try for the follow-up. The body blocks mean Jumpa actually is stuck too close to everyone else. The knockup's coming out as well from the Erlong Shen, and Baronic finds one more.
2-for-0 exchange so far in Astral Authority's favor, and this is everything that Astral Authority wanted, because now they can bring down the final standing T1 tower over here in duo. 4 is better than 1, and that only 1 left here to play defense is Crimson. Can he do it again? I'm not sure that he wants to bother trying, because if he goes down, so does that T2.
The tier 1 tower will certainly be a distant memory. That's good damage from Crimson, sure, but nowhere near enough to defend the structure, so instead Astral will fall back into the jungle. They still have a chance at this Gold Fury, which it looks like will certainly be under siege, but what a big fight. That starts with Chapo jumping in on the left-hand side and getting everything going.
The target focus is what really matters here. Keegs, for the past few fights, has been left unscathed, and that's just not acceptable here. So Astral Authority looking to rectify their wrongs, just jump on him right away, don't give him any options. They forced out the Purification Bees, they forced out the Petrify. There was really nothing more that Keys could have possibly done in that situation.
He played it about as well as you can expect, and he actually gets the Petrify and even finds a stun. Unfortunately, I believe it's just on the Wolves way in the back line, functionally irrelevant in terms of keeping him alive, and he ends up taking a spill. And without all that damage that we saw blow up Griffin earlier, there really wasn't much trouble for Astral to continue their push on the left-hand side. And don't let the 5 to 4 kills confuse you. Astral are very much out in front right now here in this game. They've got nearly 6,000 gold to their name, and that's why they're starting this push onto the Fire Giant. They want to force Flashpoint to a bad fight. It's Delny, they pull back in.
They pull Delany straight into the heart of the Fire Giant pit, and Watery Grave Thorn's gonna all be popped at the exact same time. Two pretty big team fighting capabilities that he had in his name, and now no longer. Crimson, though, has made the rotation back from base, gonna get some nice bomb damage there onto Wolves, but Wolves does have his teleport available still, so he'll be able to come back no problem.
Though it is something for Flashpoint that the Fire Giant was at least stopped, whether or not Astral were all that serious about really committing to it. They don't lose anybody, any lives, and they also don't lose the objective, so now Astral have to fall back and rethink about how they want to engage. But remember, again, Astral are the ones that are out in front. That's why they're the ones forcing the fights, and Keegs is the target. Unchained lands for the stun, Griffin there for the follow-up, but Aegis is good enough. Veronic eventually is gonna bring down the Hunter, and on the backside, Layers is looking for Crimson. He hunts him down, even with Jumpa there. The 2v1 favors Layers.
But that's the problem. Griffin's gonna bring down Matt Coy's in the front side. Delany's still on the run. He'll be able to run away thanks to that sumo slam, but still, Jumpa all the way behind everybody else. I don't know if they have enough damage to prevent this Fire Giant from happening, but Astral's got even more on the mind because they want this Phoenix.
And remember, this is all opened up by Layers, who finds the tier 2 tower earlier in exchange for the Gold Fury. Now, one fight with 3 kills, and it means they can open up the door to the Phoenix, and Astral Authority are gonna barrel right on through. Right side, Firebird comes tumbling down, and Astral have opened up a win condition, a path right through to the Titan.
And with the way these past couple of team fight engagements have gone, Finch, I'm not sure Flashpoint are feeling all that comfortable right now.
Oh, Delany
gonna take the trap. He went not expecting the entire 5-man grouping out of Astral Authority. Doesn't even get a chance to proc that Watery Grave. He's already met his own.
And that's something that just cannot happen on a World's final stage, where you take the bait, chasing the team back into the jungle. Chapo jumps back in, and an easy kill for Astral. They'll add the Pyromancer on top of the Phoenix on the solo lane side, and now firmly the game in control of Astral. A 10,000 gold lead and doubled up in the kills. Flashpoint barely hanging on.
And here's the problem. Matt Coyce just gave a face check onto Fire Giant, but they're using through space and time to get back there insanely fast, so they're gonna go straight onto this objective immediately.
Man, Astral really have pulled out all the stops here. They've just looked like the better team all set long, and Flashpoint don't have a way back into the pit. What a great call on this through space and time. They fool Flashpoint one more time and grab the objective for themselves, and they still have a couple tier 2 towers to grab and some more gold to add. This lead's not big enough for Astral yet.
The doubts might be starting to trickle in here for Flashpoint. Can
Absolutely.
we really pull this off? The mental aspects are what we really have to start looking at for some of these players.
A year of struggles, Taco, ups and downs. The console format's gone through a lot of changes. It's not been the easiest path for some of these players, and all that work now culminating right here in this moment, where they have to find a way to try and defend their base up against Astral Authority, who up to this point have looked unstoppable.
But we keep switching through player cams, and there's hardly anybody talking on the side of Flashpoint. Jumpa is the first time I've seen anybody's mouth even start to move.
At this point, you gotta hope the communication's still there from Flashpoint. That's the only way they're gonna be able to find a chance to stay in this game up against Astral. They have such a tremendous advantage in every relevant metric, though it looks like they have put on the brakes, at least for now. They've backed, they're spending their gold, finishing off some key items. You can see Layers is gone with a nice hybrid build with the stone-cutting Masamune on Kile and the Void Shield. He's still putting out relevant damage, but also not gonna be easy to kill.
Layers knows that he's just trying to be in the center of attention, because if he's able to distract on one end, then Chapo and Wolves will be able to have free reign everywhere else, and that seems to be the strategy that works out best, because Veronic will then have more than enough time to just think about where he wants to place these through space and times, because sometimes they've been very strategic in their utilization. For example, that last Fire Giant play that they just made sure that the through space and time helped them out with, but also the damage is sure to have built up by this stage, because he's practically full build now.
Mid-tier towers falling down, Taco. Mid-tier 1 gonna be the next, or mid-tier 2 rather, gonna be the call on left side. And it looks like Flashpoint at least want to be nearby for the defense. This is certainly risky if they go for an actual defense on this tier 2 tower.
seems like Flashpoint are curious to see whether or not they'd be able to put out any relevant damage. Delany so far, the only one eating up any of it. Good stuns from Crimson, gonna buy his soul laner a little bit more time to get away. Same thing for Jumpa, couldn't take that 1v1 exchange with Layers, but now Layers knows he's free to push in on the mid wave while everybody else is distracted on the left-hand side.
No surprise, we saw the full decommit there from Flashpoint on the left-hand side. They could not stay in that fight, but Chapo wants the fight to keep going. Stun lands on Delny, he wants Keegs, but finds nothing. The team doesn't get much damage onto the Phoenix, and they'll fall back for now, but they're ready to resurge right back in. It's Wolves slowly walking up and trying to force everyone back. Phoenix has already been brought incredibly low, but the blink in from Jumpa immediately countered by Layers with a knockup. They don't get the Phoenix, but that fight looks strong, and Griffin wants the snipes, but can't find him. Jumpa lives.
Jumpa just a little bit too swift with that speed buff dodge G, able to get on out of there, but that doesn't mean that the rest of his team is safe and sound, and neither is that left-hand Phoenix, because that's going to end up falling. Second Firebird of the game for Astral.
Yeah, inch by inch, slowly, bit by bit, Astral are clawing their way towards that trophy, clawing their way towards the title, and being the world's best here on console right now for Astral Authority. And Flashpoint, the only thing standing in their way. They've got 2 more Phoenixes, and look at the right side. This is the one that's already been weakened, and Astral want to come right back over to it and take it down too.
It just respawned, and I don't think Astral Authority are giving it any sort of chances to get back to half health even. They want this last, or the second Phoenix right away. That way they begin to threaten the mid lane. Look at Chapo zoning away 3 different members right now from Flashpoint.
He knows he still had the shield coming out from Wolves. He grabs Jumpa, and that forces out his beads early on. They can't get the right side Phoenix, but they do force them back right up onto the Pala from Jumpa, but he gets no one with the pull either, and Astral able to stay very comfortable.
The Phoenix has remained untouched for now. Astral Authority have encountered a couple of struggles here with trying to breach the base. Mid Phoenix has taken a little bit of poke too, but Layers, look at that health drop.
That's a lot of damage coming out from Crimson. It's late game, and the Agni level 20 and nearly full build is certainly still swinging. Astral still have a little bit of time. No, they don't. The Fire Giant buff has just fallen off, so on this push, they'll just be relying on their lead, but Jump has to defend minions.
Crimson just used his dash to get back to the right side Phoenix quicker after dropping a bomb onto the Fire minions to clear things out a little bit faster. Had Astral Authority actually known that, I think we might have seen them continue aggressing, but they'd rather play it safe over sorry, so they're going to fall back for now since the Fire Giant buff just wore off.
This is their chance to fall back, and they're going to wait more and more time. Let's see if Delny wants to bite for the bait. Once again, it's Crimson who's nearby, but I think he recognizes that this could potentially be death for him. Jumpa is nearby, though, so it's not just one this time as Chapo jumps in but can't find him.
Chapo will end up losing that Mad Guy's Cloak proc, though, that he'd been saving. Crimson knew better, and Jumpa, I love that from him, by the way. He spots out and lets his mid laner know, hey, they're definitely waiting around just like they did for Delany. Don't go up any further and just run back right now. And then Jumpa just backs because he knows that Astral Authority are looking forward. No one's checking what's behind them.
But it is a small victory compared to how much Astral's been able to grab in that last push. The left side Phoenix down, the right Phoenix grabbed long ago, and it is in that weakened state. Only the mid Phoenix is at full strength, and Fire Giant now back on the map. Astral can go grab it at any time, and they're still enjoying a rather significant lead in terms of gold. The experience less relevant. It really only matters for Koi's, who's significantly behind about 3 levels Chapo. But other than that, everything else is basically even level-wise.
Fire Giant should go down at Astral Authority in no time at all pretty soon here. The problem for Flashpoint is just that left Phoenix being so exposed. They've been successful a couple of times now with pushing the creep waves out in their favor, but it doesn't last for long. Those firemen is just a little bit too powerful for Flashpoint to keep that lane safe. So Astral Authority know that because of the constant threat of those fire waves, they should continue to apply pressure onto this right side Phoenix. They need to keep Flashpoint spread as thin as possible because that's where the mistakes start to happen.
You're exactly right. Right side Phoenix is going to be the call from Astral Authority. They're right back here with Fire Giant on everyone. And Flashpoint now with their tournament lives on the line have to find a way to slow them down and not let them break this line, not let them break through these defenses and find a way in. The wall does hit Wolves and slow him down for a moment, and Layers is very far back. They might still be waiting a little bit longer before they jump in.
Astral Authority here. They're not looking to get cold feet though by any means. They're just looking for the right time to strike. Plan your moments and execute them appropriately. One wave of fire minions already starting to go in. Someone is going to have to go pay mind to it. Crimson going to be the first to dash in, trying to make sure that this Titan takes as little damage as possible, but that means go for Astral Authority.
Yeah, that was all Chapo needed to see to start looking for Jump on the left-hand side. He does find him and keep him busy. Petrify coming through, but no stuns are going to land. Jumpo must have rectified that by going up onto the Powwow, and he is able to at least pull in one. Earth and Fury there immediately in response, but through space and time means the rest of Astral can surge forward, and the first one that hits home is Griffin. He takes out Delny early on.
And all the while, Astral Authority still kind of get what they were looking for to begin with, because that left side Phoenix also did wind up falling to the fire minions. Crimson couldn't play defense for long enough, and because of that, Astral now going to back off for a little bit here. Layers in some trouble, but a nice portal from Barani going to save it, but it's only temporary.
Crimson waiting for him right there on the back end. The bomb on the other side of the portal read the play from start to end and was able to at least take down Layers. It's 1-for-1 now. Delny for Layers, but it's 50 seconds before the Erlong Shen will be back.
Astral Authority, though, they still feel pretty comfortable with trying to push in on this right-hand side. They know that with Delany missing, Layers isn't as bad. It's a 4-for-4 right now matchup that they're looking for.
They only need a little bit of space, though, for Griffin to move in. He can burn down this Phoenix. You can see him putting in the work in the right side. Firebird indeed will go down. It's just the one in mid lane that Astral have to worry about, but this is good signs of life from Flashpoint. I know they're still bleeding. I know they're still injured, but they found ways to keep themselves alive.
But this is what Astral are also looking for out of Flashpoint. They want to make Flashpoint bleed. They want to make them start to second guess whether or not they're going to actually be able to hold on for dear life here in this fourth match, because with those two Phoenixes down, all attention is dead center for now, and Astral Authority still have a solid minute on this Fire Giant buff before it wears off.
How can Flashpoint remain calm? How can they keep those comms focused is going to be the thing to look at here for Flashpoint if they're going to make this defense happen. So far, they've at least kept themselves from taking a mortal wound, but can they continue to survive taking these smaller wounds over and over again? The question yet remains. 37 minutes and 30 seconds here into this game, and Astral pushing forward like they want to siege again.
Delany is back to play defense this time around, though, so that could make a pretty big difference, but I think that Chapo might need to start switching his target focus if he wants to be a little bit more successful with these Ragnaroks. He's done a great job at forcing out the beads from Jumpa, but I'm not sure that's really as much of a threat as, say, forcing out relics from Crimson or Keats.
Wolves has pushed forward and he immediately gets caught out by Delany, but he can handle the damage, at least for now. That's Aegis forced out from Crimson. He did not have the beads for that engagement, but they forced Jump Up onto the Powwow. He's had to use them defensively almost exclusively. He's just finding one pull, but Astral Authority don't care much for that pull. Instead, they want the damage onto the mid lane. Phoenix is down below half. Wolves is the target, but a two-man stun on the backside from Layers opens up the door for the rest of Astral to surge forward. Petrify coming up from Keegs, and Delany actually does find Wolves, who bites off more than he can chew, but Veronica gets Jumpa.
1-for-1 exchange between these two teams, but the Phoenix came with it. That's the bonus deal there for Astral Authority. 3 different sides of fire waves to pour in. This Titan already having lost a fourth of its health bar, and Astral Authority know they are right on the verge of bringing this set home.
They do still have the ultimate from Griffin Slays to try and rely on, and all the relics for their carry so they can feel comfortable. Unlike Crimson, who doesn't have the Aegis or the beads, his positioning will have to be perfect. He wants to survive this engagement and not get punished by everyone who's coming for his life. Chapo, Layers, Baronic, everyone gunning for him. He has to be careful in the back line. But for now, Astral are falling back. They know the Fire Giant's back up. They want to try and get Wolves back to be a part of this engagement, so they have to wait.
The problem, though, for Flashpoint is that quarter health that the Titan already lost is not going to recover anytime soon here.
It's not,
They might get their left Phoenix back up and running, but that Phoenix has already been exposed 2 times, and I'm sure that Astral Authority are down to bring it back down for another time, because they want as many fire minions in this base as possible. They want to ensure that whether they are looking for the fight, it doesn't matter, because I think they're just going to try to all in on this Titan itself.
That could be the call. Now, it might be a little bit difficult. They don't have that sustained damage that you get when you have like the Zeus's, the Opwash. You can drop the Lightning Storm, the Crypts, and then even if they get pushed back, they've already committed all their damage. It could be a little more difficult for Astral, but they have such a lead. They have all the momentum. They are very close right now to be claimed or being crowned as the ones who are the champions of the console wars here at DreamHack Atlanta, but Flashpoint have made it anything but easy so far.
I like this, though, from Flashpoint. They tried to push up both the left and right-hand side waves as much as possible since they recognize that those are the two Phoenixes that will be respawning first and foremost. So if they can just buy themselves a little bit of time and help from those side Phoenixes, they might stand a better chance at pushing Astral back out of their base.
Several 3K pots, though, on the sides of Astral Authority. They have the defense for Wolves and the damage coming out from Baronic and Griffin. Keep an eye on all three to see if they're shredding even more than normal once they start to make these pushes in. A portal there just as an option to keep Flashpoint scared before they jump in.
Of course, though, Delaney gonna have to take the front of the damage yet again. It's something that we've seen time and time again, but Chapel's actually getting pushed in a little bit out of position here. This could be a good fight for Flashpoint, but it's turned around immediately through space and time, just chunks.
Left side, Phoenix goes down, and Astral know they have their chance to siege. There's Fire Minions coming from the mid lane. Titan is already down to nearly half HP, but Astral hold off for just a moment longer. They got the left side Phoenix they wanted. They're being very patient, very clinical. They want the right side Phoenix as well. They want minions from every conceivable direction, and to give Flashpoint no hope for a chance to defend.
And we've spent all this time talking about Flashpoint's base and Phoenixes because that's just been the direct focus, but look at all the towers that are still standing here for Astral Authority. Even if Astral full 5-man wipe here, I'm not sure that Flashpoint can win off of it.
A blink in Cataclysm comes out from Wolves that forces out Beads, and Phoenix down already, and Flashpoint can't afford to stick around here. Their Titan could potentially be under siege once minions start to pour in, but they have a moment. They have some time as Astral fall back yet again. They've got to push up these waves. They're not ready to jump in just yet. This has been very, very patient from Astral so far.
And this Agni is so problematic, though, for Astral Authority. Crimson is the sole reason why Flashpoint have still been able to cling on for dear life here in this set. And Delaney also, both of them are standing at the top of the player damage charts despite having been behind for the entirety of this game.
I don't know what more you could ask for this mid lane performance from Crimson. He's looked great. It just has not been enough up until this point to slow down Astral. From their positioning, it looks like they want to wait on the mid Phoenix to respawn one more time and then burn that one down quickly. And Flashpoint recognized they're here for the defense. Trickster Spear coming out, but the Phoenix, as soon as it shows up, it's gone. But Layers isolate on left-hand side, falls to Crimson, and Jumpa's pressure, but Baronic is able to find the double keys made falls, as does Matt Coys. Griffin slays, gets Delny, and the door now kicked wide open. Jumpa can't find enough of the pull. Baronic with the triple kill, takes down Jumpa as well. It's only Crimson left. Astral storm into the Titan room. They want to be crowned the champs of the console wars.
There won't be any two-time victories here today, and Matt Coys, alongside of the rest of Flashpoint, is going to be headed home here, but Astral Authority bringing this one in.
Too much gains.
I think Chapo's too strong for
Yeah.
his own good. He didn't realize he was a little too strong. No one saw that. No one saw the trophy just break right there. What an amazing set that was.
Going 4 games out of this best of 5. Astral Authority coming out clean, taking out the defending champions.
Yeah, Astros looked good all year, and they brought all that momentum into the Worlds, and they played lights out, all good games, even the second game. A couple mishaps, but overall they played very well.
They definitely learned, I think, through the beginning of the year, not really winning spring, winning the summer, and now here in the fall.